Years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
Come on, let's wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Are you sure you want to wake up to this?
Come on now, wake up.
I can't wait to wake up.
Wake up, idiot!
Well, good Wednesday morning. It looks to be another great day here in the city of Indianapolis. And tonight, I think it's fair to say the most anticipated Pacers season in quite a while will get underway. In Detroit, 7 o'clock tonight, it will be the Pacers and the Pistons. They are on the road for their first two. Kind of unusual start. We're not used to that here with the Pacers. Home Sunday afternoon for their home opener. And again, I think an extremely highly anticipated season. And I can't wait to get it underway. Rick Carlisle joined us yesterday. And tonight, we'll see exactly what the rotation looks like. And they can take care of business in Detroit.
Well, good morning to you guys. This is pretty high up on the JMV must-win list, too, with the opening. We talked about that. So they got to go out. It's at least a 7.5 out of 10. Come on. They got to go out there and get the dub tonight.
Yeah, that seems ludicrous to me.
How great was it last night to watch the Knicks stink it up? I know the flip side is the Boston looks fantastic yet again. They look like easily, the best team in the Eastern Conference. But to watch the New York Knicks with spending all the money that they did to get all the players, and it's the biggest season they've had, to just absolutely get drilled last night was fun. So hopefully that does not happen to the Pacers tonight. It should not happen. I did listen to Carlisle not only with us, but his kind of his pregame presser yesterday, was listening to some of that, and they've tried to instill in the guys that this is a young team, but they've added a couple veterans, have the Detroit Pistons, and that they're looking towards game one to kind of show out that they're a different team. So excited for tonight, excited for our bets. We'll see exactly where we have the teams, where we have the Pacers finishing in the 8 o'clock hour, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. This is a big season.
Yeah, last year, I believe, on opening night, Rick Carlisle acted like the Wizards for the 72 Dolphins.
Yeah, he did.
We saw how that played out.
Who's the guy that takes all the shots? Jordan, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name.
Poole, yeah.
Jordan Poole, yeah, how could I forget? He stinks.
Rick Carlisle certainly setting the tone, understandably, for opening night here. So we'll get you set for that. Jeremiah Johnson going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. And I think a big reason why I throw out, again, I think it's the most anticipated season in a decade. You walked into this Colts season, and I thought so much of the anticipation, hype, buildup was around the curiosity of, what is this quarterback? Who is this quarterback? Is this something that is going to be, a franchise piece, a cornerstone at the position you haven't had since Andrew Luck? And, obviously we're 8 games into it, but that has not played out that way. With the Pacers, it's much different. The Pacers, you were one of the Final Four teams, and Halliburton was banged up, and Siakam was traded midseason. You have retention that we just don't see in professional sports. We don't see teams run it back yet with young players that you still feel like can ascend very often. That is a truly, truly kind of unique team. So I think that is why I look at this and think it's bigger than 2018-19 or whenever the Oladipo team had some hype around it, because you got to the doorstep of the finals last season. Certainly Boston looks like they are in a different class, but still, I think that's why I labeled it as that.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm watching last night. Now, did you watch the end of the Boston game where,
I bailed on that probably early third, but then I got back into Lakers T-Wolves.
Oh, because you wanted to see Bronny James get out there. Well, good for him. I told you that was going to happen, by the way.
Honestly, I've got a soft spot for Mike Conley. So I enjoy watching Conley.
So you stayed up late to watch Mike Conley.
And then I got to about halftime, and I thought the Bronny moment, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
That's a good way to put it,
Like,
actually.
I thought we'd treat it like maybe the walk-on's getting in and he's going to get the ball every possession. It was it was pretty nondescript outside of the overall hype of the telecast.
The human victory cigar?
Right.
That's what they usually call those guys at the end of the bench?
That's what I thought it would be.
Okay, well,
so for those that didn't watch, he played 2 minutes, 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
Yeah, he just played 3 minutes. He took one shot, but he got in there with pops. So good for them. How about that?
The 10th man last night, and again, I've always probably been more of a LeBron guy than most. I cannot believe at 40 years old he just has 36 and 13 like it's nothing.
Oh, yeah, like it's nothing, and they win the game. Yeah, I was wrong. I gave you 2 picks, both road teams. How did that look? One of my picks. It's a good way to start the NBA. I think I'll take the Knicks, and they're down by 36 points while every player on the Boston Celtics until the final couple minutes is banging in threes. Listen, I would agree with you with the Pacers. There is something special about having a team, but also having the excitement, but also on top of it, KB, the pressure that comes along with it. And, I know it's an old adage. I know it's a sports cliche. A pressure is a privilege. And that's how I feel a little bit about the Celtics. Last year they got to play. I think we thought this maybe a little bit, I think nationally for sure, that they got to play with a little bit of house money. And that is not the case this year. We are not expecting them to be in the play-in tournament, to get in to the playoffs. We expect them to win a series. We expect them to be one of the better teams in the NBA. We expect their offense to continue to be dynamic. We expect their defense to pick up a little bit. And so for them, it's like, what's that next step? And for a lot of players, right? For a Jarris Walker, what if he takes the next step? What if Halliburton does get better? What if there's another little piece to the game that Pascal Siakam added? So, along with the excitement, and I would even wonder from them, the Pacers feeling as if they have expedited because of Halliburton and his greatness and Siakam and some of the other pieces that have flourished around those guys. They might be a little bit ahead of schedule. Well, it's been excitement. It's been we're ahead of schedule. Now you're on schedule. Now there's the pressure to go out there and ball out. And that's how I view them tonight. That's how I view their season. And I'm expecting, I guess the only thing I'd be worried about, I'm wondering, I have like 4 or 5 things we can talk about with the Pacers today, is are you worried about a slow start just because it's so difficult early on this season would be the main question. But I'm ready to go. I think this is a good team. I think Rick Carlisle has assembled a good team and a good staff, and I think they should go out there and really contend to win 50 games this season.
4.5-point favorite tonight, Isaiah Jackson, the one main rotation player in question, groin injury for him. Colts back on the practice field coming up later today. It is easily the biggest game of the season outside of the week 1 matchup against Houston. That's just how it rolls when you face the best team in your division here twice before Halloween. And if you want any serious pressure on the Texans here in November and December to challenge for your first division title in a decade, this needs to fall in the win category. And honestly, Houston has got some individual questions right now. C.J. Stroud just had one of his worst games of his career. Offensive line issues galore. The name of Chris Strasser was a name that a lot of people wanted out here in Indy. He is the offensive line coach in Houston. They are without 4 defensive starters, 5 defensive starters if you count a suspension since the week 1 matchup with Indy. So I think there's a lot of personnel, and that doesn't even include Nico Collins. There's a lot of personnel differences from week 1 that I think could be trending in the Colts' favor with that one. So Colts Texans coming up here. Again, the biggest underdog of the season for Indianapolis after they were just the biggest favorite they had been all year against Miami.
Yeah, I know we're...
Breaking news from 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The Titans have just traded DeAndre Hopkins to the
7:08 in
Kansas
the
City
morning.
Chiefs.
We're going breaking news sounder?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Titans are selling.
I told you.
They just sent DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 5th-round pick that could turn into a 4th-round pick.
The Titans are staring at being the number 1 pick in the draft. They're staring at it.
Can you imagine going from Will Levis to Patrick Mahomes?
Can you imagine?
no one's got to be happier than DeAndre Hopkins.
I know Hopkins had been back and forth with the coaching staff, and if you're DeAndre Hopkins, this is exactly what you do. You become a pain in the ass so the team wants to move on from you. It's the only move that he had, and it's the right move, and it's a good move for Kansas City, is it not? I mean, they weren't going to go out, and they're not going to go out and get a young top guy that's going to cost them a 1st-rounder, a 2nd-rounder, and a 5th-rounder, plus you got to pay him a bunch of money, right? I know the name Cooper Kupp has been thrown around. The Rams are willing to move on from Cooper Kupp and eat some of that money. But still, I think Diana Rossini reported last night that was still going to be a little too rich probably for the Chiefs. And he's always, Cooper Kupp is good. He's always injured. The last 2-3 seasons, he has been nothing but injured. He was on the IR earlier this month. DeAndre Hopkins, what has he done? It's hard for me to say what has he done this season. because their passing game has just been so bad.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Jerry Rice would do anything with Will Levis.
You don't think so? You don't think Jerry Rice would be out there? I don't know. I guess going back to the Texans game real quick, that's some good breaking news there. Going back to the Texans game, I don't know why I have optimism in this game. I don't know. Should I feel about Houston that they had, as you said, one of their worst games last week, and specifically C.J. Stroud had one of his worst games as a pro, 10 of 21, 86 yards, didn't have a touchdown. Should I feel that way? Or through it all, they were able to put together a game where it took a game-winning field goal for Green Bay in Lambeau to get the win there. And Joe Mixon's back. And even last week, even the last couple weeks, if you thought the defense for the Colts has been playing better, Miami got, for the most part, what they wanted on the ground. Why would Joe Mixon not get the same this week?
Well, again, I think there are real questions with Houston. Obviously, they're still a very good football team, but no Nico Collins. Their offensive line struggles are real. Hell, we saw that in week 1. I mean, the Colts got after C.J. Stroud in week 1.
My point is, though, they almost won. It took a game-winning field goal in Green Bay for a healthy Jordan Love to beat them.
Sure, but
so that's what I don't know. I don't know how to take it.
But they've also been a lot of one-possession games as well. I mean,
Sure.
they have not been a team that's, ironically enough, I believe them and the Colts have the same exact point differential through 7 weeks.
They have 4 games right now in single digits. 4
So,
games.
I think I'm a little surprised the spread is as high as it is. Defensively, again, they are really banged up. If you go back to week 1, I mean, you're talking about a Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, Nick Cross, Jalen Jones sort of injury situation. I mean, that's what they were missing last week against Green Bay. We'll see, where they're at health-wise entering this one here. But as much as you got after Stroud in week 1, you still weren't able to finish a lot of those plays. And Joe Mixon, of course, ran all over you. And that's a dilemma. Does the fact that Nico Collins is out, does that allow you to commit more to stopping the run?
Right.
Whereas week 1, you might have said, hey, wait a minute. No. We don't believe in Joe Mixon. We're going to try and stop Collins and Diggs and Tank Dell and take our medicine. Obviously, Houston was able to, have their way on the ground. So I think it's fine. Yeah, I do, again, think there should be some optimism just because 6 points to me is a whole lot. So we'll hit on that one day closer to Indiana College game day coming into town, the south lawn there of Memorial Stadium, where they will be, gates opening up at 6:30 in the morning for the 9 a.m. start time.
I mean, you stay all night, right? I mean, if you're a college kid, do you stay up all night? You get there at 6:30, you make it through the game, and then maybe you crash for a few hours before you're, out at the bars at night. Isn't that the move?
There's been some kids stumbling back to the varsity villas that have peed on that lawn at about 6:30 in the morning.
Do you see the Nebraska that put something up that when they were walking, I guess, downtown, dudes from apartments in Bloomington were screaming at him that they sucked and that Nebraska sucks, and they were aghast by that? I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens in big boy football towns.
Welcome to the Big Ten.
If you don't bring it in the Big Ten, Nebraska, you're going to get shown up. That's exactly what happens.
Lincoln's not passionate. Bloomington is when it comes to football.
You're damn right.
On that end. So, yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, that's the news of the morning here.
Big story.
Sounds like the deal still being finalized to the Chiefs in exchange for a 5th rounder. Could be a 4th rounder. Tennessee will eat a lot of that cap space. So when you think about it, Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
You threw out the name of Cooper Kupp earlier.
Yep.
I don't recall. We're still 2 weeks out from the trade deadline, 13 days away. I do not recall this much activity of sellers to buyers. Usually the NFL is pretty quiet when it comes to the trade deadline compared to most professional leagues. Quite a lot of teams saying, here's the white flag. You want our aging, expensive wideout?
Yeah,
go right
take
ahead.
him. Yeah, the Hopkins thing just never worked out. I remember him last year.
And he's done very little in Tennessee this season.
I mean, he just has.
Granted, look at the quarterback.
Again, Mason Rudolph and Will Levis. So, good stuff there. And by the way, all those teams you mentioned, AFC teams. Just worth mentioning. All those teams, AFC teams. Obviously, we know that the Chiefs won't be battling the Colts in any sort of way. The Chiefs will win the division, probably win every game. So, we'll keep you updated on that. Again, tonight, reminder, Pacers, Pistons, 6:30 pregame coverage tonight here on The Fan. Coming up on the other side, Tyrese Halliburton on the start of the season, plus your news and scores from overnight. It's your morning checkdown. Appreciate you waking up with us right here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
Well, 12 hours from now, I think our first Connecticut commercial will have happened. We'll have seen Chris Denari's dogs. We'll be at our first commercial break.
What about his backyard? How's Daenerys'
TJ
backyard
McConnell
looking?
and Benedict Mather at the scores table. We get a look at the shrubbery in the Denari backyard. Great fire pit there.
I was about to say, the she shed is back there, looking good.
Andy Sweeney, as we open up this morning check down, we start there, opening night for the Indiana Pacers in Detroit.
Opening night for the Pacers. Again, the breaking news this morning, just quickly in the NFL, DeAndre Hopkins moved to the Kansas City Chiefs from the Tennessee Titans. I looked it up during the break. Hopkins has 15 catches on the season. I was curious. I put the over-under at like 20, and he's at about 15. So we'll give you more NFL news here in a second, but it is night 2 after last night in the NBA. Pacers back in action again. Our coverage on the Fan live from Detroit beginning at 6:30. Let's let you hear from Tyrese Halliburton. I'm sure you've heard it this morning. Kurt Darling had it on the morning checkdowns as well. Halliburton excited for a new season.
Kid on Christmas, first game of the year. It's an exciting time just because you go through the preseason and try to, be energetic and be so happy and excited for the preseason, but we all just want to get to the regular game. So happy that the preseason's over with and we're getting to, playing real basketball here soon.
Yeah, we'll see if the preseason means anything. No one happy about the way they played in the preseason, but it doesn't matter on the road tonight. Tip-off 7 o'clock. Pacers favored by 4.5.
Yeah, I would say unlike a lot of teams to start the season, the Pacers are pretty healthy. Isaiah Jackson, the only one in question for tonight with a groin injury. That could mean James Wiseman as the backup center. Could mean Obi Toppin getting a little small ball 5, so something to keep an eye on tonight. Again, a very, very loaded schedule here early on. 10 of your first 16 on the road, and the 6 home games all against playoff teams. Speaking of playoff teams, last night in the association, the Celtics absolutely pummeled the Knicks. Boy, as soon as I saw warm-ups and I saw Mikal Bridges looking like Charles Barkley shooting threes, I thought to myself, oh boy, this is going to get bad. And then I forgot Jason Tatum's pissed. And I forgot that Jaylen Brown is pissed.
Oh, yeah, they're not happy. Yeah.
Like, you win the title, you're supposed to be complacent.
No, you're pissed off.
Jason Tatum, 8 of 11 from 3. I was told he couldn't shoot threes anymore.
Man, they look good.
37 for him last night. They beat the piss out of the Knicks. The Lakers.
They really did.
I mean, they did. Is there any other way to describe it?
It's not an eloquent way to say it, but it's the correct way to say it. They beat the piss out of the New York Knicks last night.
I mean, it was a night great for Luke Cornett to play 30 minutes.
Well, okay, so they were at one point like 75%.
Is Romeo Langford still on the Celtics? He should have got in.
They were like 75% from 3, and then they went and they tried to beat the streak. They hit 20. For people that don't know, they hit 29 three-pointers. And they were trying to get to 30 so they would have the record, and they missed like 10 threes in a row. And I think they ended at 48% from 3. And at one point, like in the late third and fourth quarter, they were up over 65, 70%. They missed that many threes, did the reserves down the stretch to get that 30th three. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Nick shot 55% in the first quarter and were down, I think, 20. At the end of the first quarter.
They were down 43-24. Yeah, you might want to grab a rebound or, something if you're the New York Knicks. I don't know what that means, man. They looked bad. I know the Pacers get them on Friday. I know it's different. I know Boston's like a super team right now, but boy, New York was bad.
Lakers beat the T-Wolves. Bronny entered a late second quarter with LeBron. They were up 15 at that point. Did he shoot? I thought he shot twice. It was just one. Played 2-3 minutes, something like that. He was the Lakers' 10th man. LeBron, not human. 36 and 16 at the age of 40.
Bronny James took 2 shots.
0 for 2.
He grabbed 1 offensive rebound, so he did get in the stat column. So good for him. How about that?
Keep on forgetting about Dalton Connect. I feel like
you better not.
He's going to be challenging Zach Edey for some of that Rookie of the Year.
He only had 5 points, but he did show up fully blinged out. Did you see that? He had
I did not know.
Big old pendant. I'm like, look at him from Tennessee. Where did he go to college before Tennessee? It was a small school. What was it?
Northern Colorado?
From Northern Colorado to bling on the bench with the Lakers. Not a bad life.
Colts back to practice today. Outside of Jonathan Taylor, DeForest Buckner, EJ Speed, I think, is an injury watch. That was kind of a weird week for Speed.
It was.
Last week. He did not practice Wednesday, limited Thursday, full Friday. you see that progression. That's usually you play in the game.
It's 1,000%. Yeah.
But then was downgraded on Saturday. So was that a big setback? That I guess is something to keep an eye on that. So again, Jonathan Taylor, DeForest Buckner, certainly the big items on that. And Thursday Night Football, it'll be the Vikings and Rams coming up here tomorrow night.
Yeah, that might not be a bad game. Speaking of, just a couple NFL nuggets. We mentioned the Rams. Cooper Kupp is available. Diana Rossini of The Athletic reporting, and now others, that Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver there, who's really good, he's just always injured, is available, and the Rams are willing to eat some of that money. So just keeping that out there. Mike Evans, we saw the hamstring injury on Monday night. KB, he's set to miss at least 3 games. So you're looking at potentially going on IR there if you're Mike Evans. And then a story yesterday that, I didn't follow it too much on Sunday, but Deebo Samuel of the Niners, he had, pneumonia-like symptoms, fluid on the lungs. He was released yesterday from the hospital. You got anything else?
Well, just I think we saw this late last night. I know the World Series not beginning to Friday, but I'm sure we'll get a moment of silence for Fernando Valenzuela. He passed last night at the age of 63. You think about kind of like folklore seasons that individual years people talk about. I feel like that rookie year, that 1981 season, is certainly up there when you talk about the game of Major League Baseball. You could probably joke about starting pitchers and how long they go in games at this point. Could not believe it. Last night, someone sent out his first 8 starts, all complete games, 5 shutouts.
I love that. When men were men. Then he had a steak dinner and went out
that
there
was
and threw
like real
again.
mania around him and the wind-up and all of that.
Yeah.
So rest in peace to Fernando Valenzuela.
Did they say what was wrong with him?
I did not.
I'm fearful to ask.
63
It's
the
so
age.
young.
Yeah.
So young.
I did not see that.
Yeah, saw that come out last night. Again, the World Series not until Friday. All right, coming up on the other side, more thoughts on the Pacers as they begin their season tonight. Plus, Colts-wise, Stephen Holder is going to join us at 8. He kind of wrote about this. Running the football, I have a question about AR for Kevin Bowen, and we'll dive into that as well. Appreciate you waking up with us. We got you to 10 o'clock right here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Season opener for the Pacers. That is coming tonight in Detroit. Jeremiah Johnson, part of the TV coverage, of course. He's going to join us coming up at 9 o'clock. The days of Tim Boyle, Tyler Huntley, Will Levis, I guess from an entertainment standpoint, you might be grateful it's over. From a do you care about wins and losses, you might want them to show up on the schedule a little bit more. Upcoming for the Colts, Andy. Right now, if you look at the MVP odds, 4 of the top 8 guys on that list you will see here in the next month. That includes Jared Goff. That includes Josh Allen. That does include C.J. Stroud still, and actually it includes Sam Darnold, as crazy as that sounds to a lot of people. So again, at Texans coming up Sunday, at Vikings, home to Josh Allen and the Bills, at the Jets, and then I would say arguably the best team in the league right now, the Lions. That's coming up there. Another home game in November.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFL. Would you go Lamar Jackson as NFL MVP again? Mm-hmm. So that's just where we are right now.
But I know there is a lot of steam building for Goff.
Oh, I think Jared Goff is probably what? I mean, in my mind, he's probably what? Top 5? Top 4?
Yeah, I think he was
MVP?
third on a lot of those lists right now. So, again, the schedule upcoming, certainly the toughest stretch the Colts have faced all season long, and a far cry from what they've had here in recent weeks.
All right, so we'll dive back into the Pacers. Obviously, tonight, our coverage beginning at 6:30 there in Detroit. I had a question. For you with Anthony Richardson, and I think I know how you're going to answer because we've talked around it, but we haven't talked specifically about it. And that's him running the football. I know. So let me give you, if you're a new listener or whatever it may be, let me give you a lay of the land. Anthony Richardson comes into the league, and I think we all understand that he needs to run the football. They need to utilize his feet. It's a huge part of what he is. Plus, he can run at an elite level in the NFL. He definitely cannot throw at an elite level. So, when he came into the NFL, even before I was working with you knuckleheads, I was thinking, okay, this is a guy that is going to run the ball a lot. He's not a Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson played more football than him, won a Heisman Trophy, was a much more established passer of the football. And so, you go to year 1, and he gets injured, and he gets injured when he's on the move, okay? And he gets injured by smaller players, and so we had that conversation. And then in the offseason, KB, I know you had been not in what's the terminology you use? Lessen, not eliminate? Is that what it was? Limit, not eliminate him running the football. In other words, hey, if you need him 7-8 times a game, you may not need him on a 2nd and 9 in the first quarter, but you're going to need those feet later in the game. We saw a little bit of that on Sunday. In this last game against the Dolphins. And then he had the game against the Dolphins, and he ran the ball 14 times, and it seems like yesterday we had Joel A. Erickson on from the Star, and he said as much. He's written as much. He's put on Twitter that, an offense where Anthony is running the ball is something they need going forward. We're about to have Stephen Holder coming on in about 22 minutes here at the top of the hour, and he has been, he wrote the exact same thing on, okay, now the offense, we need not forget that Anthony Richardson can run the ball at a high level. Yesterday, we had the conversation, and I think you were in at least some agreement that it feels like running Anthony Richardson now is a huge topic. How has your opinion changed? Because I feel like before the season, me and you both were thinking 7-8 times-ish a game. And I think now the conversation is around, getting that up above double figures. Joel yesterday said he liked him running 14 times, which is what he ran against Miami on Sunday. So has the conversation changed because we have seen him not be able to throw the ball? Has it changed because we think if he can run early in the game, that gets the offense in a good groove? We saw that a couple weeks ago against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Has your opinion changed at all about how much Anthony Richardson should be running the football?
No, because I don't think it's sustainable for his long-term health. You run him 14 times week in and week out, Joe Flacco's going to be needed a whole lot more. It goes back to the age-old question we had at the start of the year. Can you run an effective offense and keep him healthy? And it's also, I think, stunting some of his growth areas. And that's the difficult part with Richardson. If you're trying to go win a football game tomorrow, that's the only thing that matters. Only thing that matters. You have to win this football game tomorrow.
Right.
You'd run Anthony Richardson. Hell, you'd run him 20 times in a game. But what's that going to do for him if you're trying to survive 17 weeks? What's that going to do for him if you're trying to actually develop him as a passer? And that's the awkward balance in nature to where the Colts are. The Colts are in this weird sort of situation of like, wait a minute, are they a playoff team? They haven't won a division title in 10 years. Like, shouldn't they be, win now, win now, win now? And it's like, okay, if you do that with Richardson, you have to cater away from obviously his weaknesses as a passer. Is that sustainable for his career? I would say the answer is no. And then also, is that sustainable for his longevity and his health? And I would say the answer to that is also no. I don't want to speak for everybody, but how many times did he take hits on Sunday and you think, is he going to?
Oh, every single time.
Did he get up from that?
Well, there was a play.
Hey, why did the camera pan away from that?
Well,
Go back to him.
There was a play, and I meant to bring it up. God, I can't remember when it was. It was in the middle of the game, second or third quarter, where he ran and he tucked himself into like a little ball, like a kid may sleep. Did you see this play? I know you were at the game too. You had to rewatch it and kind of really focus on it. He tucked himself into a ball, and I swear one of the Colts players, I'm forgetting who, he thought Anthony Richardson was injured. Like, he almost started to call over, like, hey, something might be wrong here, but Anthony popped up. The answer is every time he takes a hit, I wonder.
So
that's the answer.
Again, that is the question of, in a perfect world, you would be running Richardson, a handful of times a game, and he would get all this experience as a passer. Of course, if you're going to expose him to all those experiences as a passer, you're going to get volatility. You're going to get roller coaster. You're going to get inaccuracy. This season, we've seen a lot of turnovers with that as well. So that's just the weird nature to Richardson and the Colts right now. It's if you want to win a game at all costs and that's the only thing you care about, yeah, run him into the ground. Treat him like the high school football team that can't throw the football down the field, or, Army and Navy. Like, that's what you would do, but that's probably not the best thing for him individually in terms of getting answers on him as a player, and certainly it's not the best thing for him and keeping him healthy throughout 17 weeks.
I wonder, and I don't know this. I'm being clear. I do not know this. I can go back to 2022 when Steichen was there with Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts had, at that time, a career high in rushes, in carries at 165. I mean, that's a huge number. He had 13 touchdowns. He had nearly 800 yards on the ground. If you go by average, KB, over 15 games, 165 carries is 11 per game. I guess I feel I think that's a good number, by the way. I think when we talk about numbers, I think you get up to 15, 16. I think that's too many because I'm not sold, because then you really start to eat into Jonathan Taylor. But I think where I have changed on this is instead of 7, I think that number is now higher. And I have seen enough of him passing that I think they do need to compliment him with his feet. The other thing that I don't know, and I wish I knew the answer, was when they drafted him, and Steichen will never give you this information. They'll beat around the bush, and they'll say, well, with each player it's different, in each game it's different. I wonder when they took Anthony Richardson, and Ballard too, if they had a number in mind that they wanted to run him. They had to have had a number in mind. We want 11 rushes a game. That's what we want from this guy who can run the football. So I don't know the answer here. I feel like my gut tells me, my substantial football gut tells me, KB, that they need to run him more. What you're saying makes sense. The flip side, the only argument I could use against you is I don't know how you legislate keeping him healthy. And I think Shane Steichen may even disagree with that. That no, we're going to run him.
Oh, he would.
And if he's going to be the player that we want, this is how it's going to be. It's
right.
never going to be drop back passer.
Again, limit, not eliminate. I don't know. It's probably is a stupid phrase, but I try to find something that, can you still, of course, utilize his dynamic nature of the leg threat? Because just go back and watch Tyler Goodson's touchdown. Miami has multiple defenders going to Richardson on that play.
Right.
And again, that's the leg threat without him taking a hit. And as long as you sprinkle that in, it's always going to be there. Teams are going to have to account for that throughout the course of the game. I do think Sunday is another kind of milestone. I don't know if that's the right term to use with Richardson. It's the first time he's ever seen a second opponent during a season.
It's such a good point.
The first time he's ever seen the same coaching staff in a season.
Well, he's played in
if you want to go back, he saw Houston last year
right,
as well.
And he's played in Houston twice now.
And this will be just the third road game he has ever been in. Again, at Houston last year. When he got hurt. I know these are
really
weird, but like
I
they
always
are.
forget them. KB always brings them up.
I know.
They are these benchmarks, so that is something to note. And that's twofold. That is Richardson seeing DeMeco Ryans, but it's also Houston seeing Anthony Richardson, the Colts. And I think Miami showed last week, and I think teams are starting to say, hey, if we suffocate the Josh Downs element and we keep safeties back, this dude ain't going to hit the 10, the 12-yard throws.
No, he's not.
So, like, again, this is twofold. It's also Richardson getting used to personnel and scheme and all of that, sure, but it's also defense is saying, hey, we've learned from facing him the first time. Go back to Houston week 1. The only time the Colts had success offensively week 1 was bombs to Alec Pierce and Ashton Doolin. Remember, Jonathan Taylor couldn't run it.
Oh, yeah. He didn't have anything.
Week 1, and that intermediate passing game was non-existent. So more on the Colts certainly throughout.
But quickly, you would agree, though, that the thought now is you need to run AR more. That is now one of the main narratives around him. Whether it's right or not, isn't the expectation that he's going to run the football more going forward? That numbers went up at least 3, 4, 5 rushes a game, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't run him a lot early in the season. That Pittsburgh game they started to, and then, of course, last Sunday was the first time we've seen him since, and they ran him a lot. Again, if the thought is all we are caring about is winning a game on Sunday, then yes, you are running Richardson a lot, particularly without Jonathan Taylor. But how much does that change when Taylor comes back?
That's a good question.
And also, is there a big picture thinking with how you call a game, which I know sounds weird. Like, a lot of people would say no. You have to live in a week-to-week NFL cycle, and the only thing you care about is winning the next game. Well,
I'm struggling with that. That's what I'm struggling with.
What are the risks in his development? What are the risks in him staying healthy? Tonight in Detroit, it is Pacers and Pistons, 4.5-point favorite season opener. Rick Carlisle would probably laugh at this thought.
Okay.
All this emphasis on more physicality, and I don't know, the second game last night, I guess, was low scoring. The first game had plenty of points. Boston, of course, hit a ton of threes. But if all of this is like, it's going to be more physical, it's going to be more FIBA-like, I almost think in a weird way that might favor the Pacers.
Okay, why is that? Because I think a lot of people view it the opposite way, right? That they're a finesse team, that you can bully them a little bit,
They can't defend to begin with. So now is it just, you just hack and you get away with it?
And
I know that's just such an elementary, stupid thought. Coaches around, we might have coaches listening being like, that is idiotic. But if that's the thought, you're going to get away with more.
That's what the NBA is saying, that you're going to be able to touch the other player a little bit more. It's an odd way for me to say that.
The Aaron Nesmith, Nemhards, and Siakams of the world, and your other wing defenders, just hack a little bit more. And they're not going to call it as much. And I don't think the Pacers are this, like, Halliburton is not a driver that gets to the foul line, I think the Pacers offensively, it's ball movement, it's passing,
it's open shots,
that sort of thing. They're not this, outside of Mathurin, really, I don't think they are like a put your head down, get to the bucket, and your reliance on a lot of whistles, So I don't know, man. I don't think I'm trying to spin it in a Pacers direction, but I'm like,
it's a great question.
Could this kind of favor them?
Well, I think on defense, I understand what you're saying on defense. I think my biggest question about it is, are teams able to be more physical with Halliburton? That he's not able to get to his spot. Does that make sense? And I know he's not a driver.
Sure, and that is a very good counter.
Type.
That is a very good counter to it, and it's probably a fair question. And if you watch the preseason, there's plenty of evidence to strongly disagree with what I just said on both ends of the floor there. But I guess I'm very interested in how that is going to be officiated throughout the year and what it looks like for the Pacers. Because, in the postseason, the Pacers still got into a pretty good offensive rhythm. And the thought in the postseason is defense rises. The officials swallow more of their whistles, those sorts of things. And the Pacers still got into, a pretty good offensive flow. So That's certainly a question that I've got.
Reminder, Stephen Holder coming up here in about 10 minutes. What is your confidence level on Benedict Mathurin? What do you think our conversations will be about Ben Mathurin the next few months?
Well, I'm heavily biased.
I know you are. That's why I'm asking. Because I'm worried about him. I'm worried about it all.
You expressed that yesterday. I don't think we can lose sight of who he is and what makes him Benedict Mathurin. And that is a aggressive, attacking, one-on-one type of player that is important in the NBA. It is necessary, I would argue.
I would agree.
Especially when you get into some playoff-type basketball moments. That is something that I think is needed. And I don't think we should lose sight of that as we seriously examine him defensively and him as a passer, making the right play, those sorts of things. So, he is if you want to look at it, he's got 80% of the total package, if you want to label that. And it's like, we're so focused on this final 20%, and that's important. I do think it's needed, and it's important for his growth, and can he get to this next level? But, if we harp on that too much...
We're forgetting about everything else.
Yeah, which is, really good stuff.
Yeah, I know.
He had the best rookie season the Pacers have had in decades. And so don't lose sight of that, I guess, is kind of what I'm pleading for, asking for. And again, I'm biased. So... roll your eyes at me if you would like.
Do you think people do, Mark? Do people roll their eyes about on KB when he talks about Ben Mathurin?
The statue and everything?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
Maybe.
Yeah, the statue. Maybe a hair hyperbolic there. But I guess, he doesn't need to become Derek McKee or this lockdown wing Sure, that would be nice, but the guy still brings a whole lot of important things to your basketball team, even if he maybe is not the assist man of T.J. McConnell, or, again, the defensive element that Aaron Nesmith brings. So, yeah, I just feel like we criticize Mathurin more than any player on the team.
Yeah,
and honestly,
I don't disagree with that.
You know what I think holds him to a really, really high standard?
Rick Carlisle.
Is Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, I would agree.
You listen to Rick Carlisle talk about Ben Shepherd versus Ben Mathurin, and it's a poor analogy, but it's talking about your son versus the stepchild. It's a little bit of that in a way.
Yeah,
Hey, what's good, Kevin? Thank you for your support. Heard you're a big fan of the Pacers. I'm here, supporting you. You
Gosh,
support
that was
me.
so weird.
And I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the season and looking forward to do some damage and get some wins. Let's go.
Does he know I'm 35 with 2 kids?
He thought you were 10.
No, yeah, he thought you were a 9-year-old boy.
Oh, I'll do this video for this child.
Yeah.
Not an on-air radio host in his mid-30s.
He call you Kevin or Kev? If
Yeah,
he said
that's-
Kev, that's
Hey, what's
definitely...
good, Kevin?
Probably
Okay,
probably one of our more humbling moments, honest. So your worry is because of the defense and the lack of making the extra pass?
No, I'm not worried about the defense stuff. Here's my
Because I think it's fine to be
question.
worried about him on that end. I'm not. I don't want to ignore that.
I'm just worried. I'm worried about their defense as a whole. I'm not going to single out Benedict Mathurin on their defense. I mean, there's other guys on this team, starting with Tyrese Halliburton. If I'm going to harp on defense, there's probably 3-4 guys that I can do that. I am interested / worried about the comments that they made right after the season and continually made this offseason about Benedict Mathurin. You could say that they are, that they are high on him, so they're holding him. Rick Carlisle is holding him to a higher standard. That very much may be the key. My thing was they openly talked about, hey, are you going to start fitting in here? That to me is the thing that worries me a little bit, is if they believe, it's a thin line. It's like Anthony Richardson running the football. There's a thin line on, you want to run him, you want that to be a threat, but you don't want to run him too much. There's a little bit of that with Mathurin. You want Mathurin to be Mathurin, right? A guy that can fill it up. Now he's coming off the bench. If you need a guy to have a flurry and score 10 straight points, who on this team can do it better than Benedict Mathurin? The answer is nobody. He's the guy that can do it better, but you also don't want the ball to stop. You don't want some of the YOLO stuff. You don't want some of the negative side effects that can come with a guy that plays the style that he does. And Carlisle talking about he needs to conform to us, and he saw us have success without him. Statements and that type of rhetoric, KB, no one else on the team had to be talked about, was talked about like that.
Yeah, but
that's the only thing that worries me.
Let's not act like the Pacers were a 20-win team with Mathurin in the lineup. And I feel like at times it's like that's how he's talked about, of like, hey, he's got to fit into us. We won 60 without him, and we won 20 with them. And I'm like, wait a minute. They made some big strides as a basketball team.
I know.
Thanks to him. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's turned into this, like, now I almost have to carry a bit of a flag for him on an island here. And again,
and that's the Pacers who did that, by the way.
Right,
that's not the fan. I think the fan base.
And I think part
Benedict
of this
Mathurin.
is Carlisle tough love, because he knows Mathurin kind of likes it.
Yeah,
frankly,
I agree.
And so that is how he's wired. So certainly that is a huge storyline. And when you look at the schedule to start the year, we'll get more into this at 8:30, Andy. Again, the first 16, 10 on the road, your 6 home games, all against playoff teams. Is it going to take a while for them to get used to the new whistle, theoretically, the tougher start? Or is the flip side saying they've got continuity unlike any other team in the league? They are healthier than a lot of these teams in the league.
That's how I feel.
Shouldn't they get off to a good start?
That's
you could
how I
talk
feel.
yourself into either side of it here. So I think that'll be something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Pacers conversation. We'll get back to that. Give our thoughts on what we think is going to happen this season coming up at about 8:30. The latest on the Colts, Anthony Richardson. Obviously, a huge game in Houston this week. We'll talk about it all. Stephen Holder joins us on the other side from ESPN.com. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Andy Sweeney, 8 a.m. trivia.
Okay. I'm not over JMV to toilet in his little look ahead there. That's pretty funny. All right.
I have audibly laughed at that a few times this year.
It's one of his go-tos.
2 college football teams have yet to trail this season.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing Miami is one of them, right? Given that we're having Stephen Holder on. I'm going to say the second one's Indiana.
I guess I should have referenced Stephen Holder a little bit better. No,
okay,
Miami's not the other team. I feel like they've been down late and needed miracles to come back.
I guess you're right. That's stupid. Indiana is one
Indiana
of them, though?
and Army.
Oh, Army. Okay.
Can you imagine the start of the season saying we're going to get to October 23rd and Indiana and Army are going to be the 2 teams who have yet to trail?
We need to bring on someone that knows about Army and Navy because I don't. Of course, after this weekend, you might.
I was going to say, I'm sweating thinking about Notre Dame playing Navy coming up this weekend. To talk more about a little football action, Stephen Holder from ESPN joins us. Stephen, did you end up going down to Louisville for the Miami game? It looked like a great game.
I did go down, and yeah, I can confirm that Miami has definitely trailed this season. So, let me tell you, and that's part of the problem. They don't make it easy, but we'll take 7-0 though.
That was a wild one. The back and forth. Who's going to get the ball last? And I don't know. Cam Ward, he probably is going to hear his name called relatively early, I would think, in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, if I had to guess, if you're talking about quarterbacks, I think him and Shedeur Sanders have really, I think, acquitted themselves the best of all the top prospects. And I don't think anybody thought that was going to be the case. But, there were questions about both of them. I mean, I think they're the 2 guys. And there's still questions. But, the Carson Becks of the world, I just a lot of up and down, And those 2 guys, though, Cam and Shedeur Sanders, I think, not that I'm a draftnik, I'm no Mel Kiper, but I think the one thing they have done is consistently elevate their teams. And, when they need a play, they make the play. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and the thing about Cam is not, he's not like Kyler Murray. He's not like 5'9", okay? He's not like me. He's like 6'2". Like, he's more of a built dude than people give him credit for.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right because, there are that would be a question unto itself. Can he do it at the NFL level? But, I mean, he has been pretty durable. He doesn't take big hits, but he definitely has taken some hits and has been durable throughout them. So I'm encouraged, man. I'm really interested to see what he can do. I really feel like he's the kind of guy who, whatever the situation is, you always feel like you have a chance. It's like just when you put the ball in his hand, you just don't know what could happen. And that's just a really comforting thing, even if you're not playing well, which they haven't, at times.
Yeah, not to make this a Miami Hurricane hour. They don't play Clemson. You guys don't play Clemson. I did not know that before the season, so very well could win the ACC. Stephen Holder, ESPN.com with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. You wrote about this. We've talked about it. It's now a huge discussion point, and that is, the amount of rushes we should see going forward with Anthony Richardson. Do you have a number? Will we just know it when we see it? How do you handicap everything around getting Anthony Richardson on the edge, up the middle, but running the football more in this offense?
So I don't think the number is 14 rushes, which is what he just had. But I would say this. I think you actually just hit on it. You said, we'll know it when we see it. I think to a large degree, this is going to be a case-by-case basis. And Sunday's game was a case where they just had to do what they had to do. And that's how I think Shane Steichen should think about this. They have an offense that has been up and down. Clearly, they're a team that's been up and down, certainly. So whatever the game calls for, that's what they need to do. I have reached a point on this, and it's easy for me to say sitting in the press box and not taking the hits, but I've reached a point where I really believe you just got to do what you got to do. And if that means you got to run him more times than ideal, then that's what you have to do. Look, the injury risk is there, certainly, all right? It is there. But if you try to turn Anthony Richardson into something else, then you are, as an organization, the Colts are basically doing that in the face of their entire rationale for drafting him. their rationale for drafting him was that he's a dual threat quarterback. So make him a dual threat quarterback. And you have to have both threats in order to be that. And so it is what it is. All right. The risk is the risk. If he gets hurt, then he's not going to be the guy. Right. That's just it. I don't take any pleasure in saying that. I love Anthony Richardson, but they have to do what they got to do. And that involves running him. It just is what it is.
Stephen Holder's with us here from ESPN. Stephen, this morning, the NFL news, DeAndre Hopkins off to Kansas City. Sounds like that deal being finalized. Fourth-rounder conditional on that trade. Obviously, last week we saw Devontae Adams. We saw Amari Cooper. Cooper Kupp's name has been thrown around. We're 2 weeks out from the trade deadline, and we've already had, I'd say, a decent amount of action. To the Colts, wide receiver. This offseason, there was a Justin Jefferson rumor. There was a Colts trading into the top 10 thought as well. Did all of that wide receiver hype for this organization, did all of that go away with the drafting of A.D. Mitchell, or is this something we should just keep in mind?
I think we lost Steven. It was a good job. You set up the question.
That was a pregnant pause.
Yeah, he did. He gave a pause.
What'd you think?
I thought he was listening, but after that first second and a half, I knew we had lost him.
Gosh.
Yeah, I felt really bad.
Do you want to go on a second date and just crickets,
Just nothing. Well, I was worried on my question he was breaking up, but then it was all good. We have issues with Stephen Holder's phone. We're calling him back.
It was funny when
right
I
now.
started the question. I was like, boy, I don't really even hear the background noise. I'm like, and I do this at times. Sometimes you just put the phone on mute. You got other things you're doing. And,
sure.
I'm going to ask a long-winded question here. For those that missed it, DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. Again, conditional fourth on that. Sounds like Tennessee will eat a lot of that contract. Hopkins has done nothing this season of note.
15 catches, 1 touchdown.
He also is going from
I just can't imagine.
the outhouse to the penthouse, I would say, in quarterbacks. So,
and they need him, too.
That's on them.
Kansas City, it's not only that Kansas City gets him, it's the fact that Kansas City needed somebody on top of it.
Steven, welcome back. No idea if you heard any of that or not.
I heard all of it, actually.
Okay.
I never got disconnected. I don't know what happened. I heard the whole thing, and I was talking as if you could hear me. So I don't know what happened. So I heard the question about the receivers. I don't think that it I don't think that the question necessarily went away solely or exclusively because of A.D. Mitchell. I do think it went away, though, because of the overall performance of the wide receivers. Now, I'm saying this after a game in which they really didn't do anything. Okay, so I realize that. But I do think overall what we've seen from the wide receivers this season, I think it's the most promising performance we've seen collectively from the Colts. And, I mean, it's got to be more than a decade. I think this is the deepest group I've seen in my years in Indianapolis. It doesn't mean that these guys individually are better than, like, say, T.Y. Hilton. I'm not saying that. I'm saying collectively, though, top to bottom, I like this group better than any I've seen in my time. So, I mean, I think you have to go back to the Peyton era, I would say, to really find a group that collectively was better. And that's a compliment. Yes, it's also it's also, I guess, an indictment of some of the wide receiver groups they did have, during the Andrew Luck era. Yeah, it is a low bar, but they're pretty good. I think overall they've exceeded maybe people's expectations, and I think have fulfilled Chris Ballard's expectations. I know he can't wait to talk to you again, KB, because we know he loves to needle you about wide receivers. But anyway, I do think they've been fine.
Gosh, he's sending the message to us.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to eject from Stephen Holder, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's too bad.
All good, Mark, on that end. Thank you to Stephen Holder for his efforts. He does enough for our station. Stephen's right, I think, in that answer of I probably should have prefaced by, to be fair, Josh Downs has certainly shown that I think he can be a very consistent pass catcher. Alec Pierce has said, hey, just get me the right quarterback, and I can probably tap into some things. But I don't know. You just see all this wide receiver activity, Andy, and when Josh Allen really took off, Stephon Diggs came to Buffalo. When Jalen Hurts really took off, A.J. Brown came to Philly. Does that thought still need to be there? And I'm not acting like DeAndre Hopkins is that, or Devontae Adams even, or, I guess Amari Cooper for Josh Allen again. But it's just a thought when you see all this wide receiver activity that popped back in my head.
Well, I mean, it should. I mean, you saw Devontae Adams get moved, and you saw Amari Cooper get moved, and Amari Cooper got moved for very little. For very little. Plus, we can talk about draft capital. How many draft picks did not end up making the 53-man roster for the Colts this year?
3.
Yeah, even when you draft a guy and then you have him for a few weeks or months and he doesn't make your roster, it's kind of like one of those things that, I don't know how much draft capital really means. Yeah, I guess my biggest thing on this is I have a feeling, and the numbers with Josh Downs, specifically him, support this, and the tight ends. So the tight ends and Josh Downs, Joe Flacco can get them the ball. Can Anthony Richardson this season get them the ball? I think I have a question. I know last week you could say, well, guys weren't open, and then we start to blame the scheme, and then we start to blame Shane Steichen instead of Anthony Richardson. I'm not even worried about like who to blame in all of this, but when Joe Flacco plays, it has felt like, and listen, I think Gardner Minshew would fit this mold. It feels like Josh Downs is immediately a big part of the offense, and the tight ends are a part. Not the biggest part, but a part of the offense. Early on here, it has not felt like this season. And I know the first couple games Downs did not play, which skews everything. But the few games they've been together, Downs hasn't been as active early on as we saw with Flacco, and the tight ends the same. That would be something that going forward, if AR keeps stringing games together where he's playing and finishing games, I'm going to be interested on kind of what the splits with Josh Downs look like. Because I think he's the guy that needs 6-7 catches a game.
Certainly, and I go back to kind of what I said in the opening hour. How much of this is now teams are like, oh, hey, Josh Downs is our number one, guys. Michael Pittman Jr. is hurt, and Alec Pierce only catches go balls.
Yeah, there's something to it.
How much do you say, hey, we've got to take Downs away, especially on the critical downs, third down? Do you see that? Again, Josh Downs did not play in the first matchup. If you go back to that Week 1 game, Colts and Texans, 29-26 the final there. It was very feast or famine for the Colts. They hit the deep ball to Pierce. Remember the incredible play by Richardson, the incredible throw early in that game. That was really it till the blocked punt. They got a huge block punt in the third quarter. That helped them get back into it. And then again, Richardson had another deep ball to Pierce. He had that frozen rope to Ashton Doolin on the catch and run. For Houston, it was Joe Mixon all day long, and it was Nico Collins making timely play after timely play. Houston will not have Nico Collins for this one. Joe Mixon is back. So I thought kind of my grand takeaways from Week 1, Andy, the run game went in totally opposite directions. Houston ran it whenever they wanted to.
Yeah.
The Colts couldn't run it at all with Taylor. He only had 3 yards per carry. I was stunned by that. The Colts got after C.J. Stroud. They sacked him 4 times. They hit him 10. You'd sign up for those numbers right away for Sunday.
I mean, that's been 4 in the rest of the season for the most part.
Yet, he had his most efficient day of the season, and that came back to not making enough plays at the back end. Again, the Colts only got their hands on 1 pass from C.J. Stroud. If you remember it was kind of a semi-underthrow that Jalen Jones tipped away at the end. So that, I think, is such a huge part to Sunday. Now it's a Houston passing game without Nico Collins. Stroud just had his worst game of his career. For what it's worth, the Colts have Samuel Womack now. They didn't really have him in Week 1.
I mean, you can laugh at that, but he'll be out there.
Sure.
I know some people
he's
laugh
arguably
at
been
that,
the Colts' defensive MVP.
I mean, he's been good.
Frankly, through the first 2 months of the season. So, again, can you continue to get after Stroud, but yet cover, rush and cover? That's the phrase you hear quite often. Really, if you look at the Stroud matchups, the Colts have gotten after him a decent amount here in each of his first 2 seasons. It's the cover part. It's the back end making plays that's been the question mark. Now without their best player, or their best skill player, I should say, Nico Collins, how much can that aid the Colts?
Yeah, I know they'll never say, and this is one thing I was going to ask Steven, but I know they'll never say, the Colts, that is, not Stephen Holder. I know that they'll keep this quiet, but, I mean, don't you feel like you're changing up your defensive game plan just a little bit here? Nico Collins has crushed you the last couple. I mean, he has been dominant against you the last couple times he's played, and without him, I mean, it's fair to say right now that Stephon Diggs has been a short yardage he's been okay, but
he made a few big plays though against the Colts week 1. They were short yardage, but they were red zone,
they were
third down, touchdowns.
You're just not worried about him going deep, right? You're not
I know
worried.
what you're saying.
Yeah, you're not. You're going to be able to control him in a box. Dalton Schultz had 1 catch on Sunday. He has not been a part in 2 years. Hasn't been a huge part of their offense. Without Nico Collins, you have to feel, if you're Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen and Gus Bradley, you have to feel positive about how your defensive backs have played, that you trust them in this game. And you got to say, Joe Mixon's not running for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns against us. It just can't happen. I mean, Mixon's back. He's healthy. He had a good game.
Is that a hope or a belief?
Well, no, that is that is if they go out,
because the Colts' run defense didn't look very different to me last Sunday.
It stinks. If they go out there and they lose this game and they lose in a similar way, but without Nico Collins, and let's say C.J. Stroud has 165 yards and a touchdown, and maybe has a turnover somewhere, and you still lose this game because Joe Mixon and company, they're running all over you. I think it is fair to say, and I think we're already probably there, that Steichen and company can talk about we need to play our best football. We haven't yet played our best football. What does that look like knowing that you cannot stop the run against anybody? Against a bad quarterback, against a good quarterback, against a backup quarterback, against a starter. They haven't been able to do that. That would be my question. If Joe Mixon goes out and goes over, I don't know what number we want to put on it, 100 yards, 110 yards, to me, the Texans have proven with last week they're too easy to defend. I don't know why I had this weird optimism about Sunday. I should not. I think Nico Collins is worth that much.
Well,
he's
Houston's
that good.
I mean, what I'm trying to get at is Houston's a lot different team than week 1. The Nico Collins example we've pointed out. Again, defensively, they were without 5 starters from the week 1 matchup last week in Green Bay. 5.
Yeah, it's a huge number.
Now
they played Will Anderson and Hunter.
Colts killer Danico Autry is back from his 6-game PD suspension from earlier in the season. So, that is someone to factor in. But plenty more on this front. Again, the Colts get back to practice later today. The thought is there's some high optimism on DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor getting back to practice. Is that enough for Sunday with those 2 guys? Those will obviously be big storylines to keep an eye on as the week moves along. In a bit, we'll give our Pacers thoughts season-wise. Game 1 of 82 tonight. Our coverage, of course, Mark Boyle, 37th season on the airwaves here. Eddie Gill going to join him for all 82 games this season. So our coverage will begin. Pat Boylan pregame show at 6:30. Jeremiah Johnson on at 9. It's basically how you viewed the Pacers last year is how you'll view them this year TV-wise, but it's a new name, FanDuel instead of Bally. So I'm done with my Bally hatred.
You've moved. Well, I mean, you've just moved your hatred to another entity, have you not?
So now I hate the betting app that lured me into Purdue and Oregon on Friday.
Well, you'll hate it double as much because you'll hate it for the streaming service if it messes up, and they also hate it if it's stealing your money in the process.
So does the app still say Bally, or do I have to re-download the app?
I think you have to update it, and it'll
you probably
change
have,
over.
Yeah, you probably have to update that sucker.
Mine says FanDuel Sports Network now.
Mine's already updated.
Oh, yeah, gosh. Now
it's good to
now
go.
I'm looking at it. Wow.
Yeah, it did it while you were sleeping. You no longer have to hit update. It just does it. Your iPhone would just take care of it on itself. I'm fine with it. The only question I have is, who will be, this has happened if you move stations, radio guys, if you move radio stations or the station may change, this happened here, the station changes its moniker in some way or dial in some way. You say the old station. I mean, JJ got to worry about saying Bally Sports tonight? I mean, you got to, right?
No, JJ's a pro.
Okay.
He's a pro. That will not be a worry
Pros
at
mess
all.
up.
All right, let's hit a morning check down here on the Wake Up Call.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUKnights.com for tickets.
All right, night 2 of the NBA. Everyone in action tonight, basically. Pacers and Pistons, 7 o'clock, 6:30 pregame right here on The Fan. Pacers favored, still holding at about 4.5. Let's hear from Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton, along with Rick Carlisle, saying some nice things about the Detroit Pistons, a new-look team there in Detroit, as your boy JMV would say. Here's Halliburton yesterday.
It's a young group that didn't have a ton of success last year, but they have a ton of talent, and they also have a great coach in Bickerstaff, and So I'm excited to play against them. I think that they're part of the young group in the NBA trying to find their way and make noise in our league. So especially early in the year, when everybody's 0-0, it's a fresh year, so they get to put everything that happened to them last year aside, and it's a new year for them and a new year for us. So we just got to approach the game the right way because we know, you watch them in the preseason, they're playing really hard, really together. So we're looking forward to it.
Had Tyrese Halliburton not said it, you could have given me 100 guesses as the Detroit Pistons head coach, and I would not have guessed J.B. Bickerstaff.
I tell you, him and Carlisle both. I mean, you think Bickerstaff is Phil Jackson? You think he's Phil Jackson? I was trying to think of a coach. It's Steve Kerr.
Red Auerbach.
Red Auerbach, Popovich, someone like that. All right.
Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. Those are three names I'm like, wait a minute, shouldn't they be on better teams than the Pistons?
Well, Tim Hardaway started back when Rick Carlisle was the head coach in Dallas.
Was important for Dallas last season.
Well, also, didn't everyone hate Tobias Harris in Philly? So he went to a place that's a little bit less hatred than the Sixers.
Has Detroit thrown the most money at head coaches in the last couple of years as well?
I mean, they fired Dwayne Casey early, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, Monty Williams.
Well,
Monty Williams for sure.
Is it Monty
Yeah,
Williams
that's a great call,
at a high school? Did I see that? I think Monty Williams got a job at like a prep school.
This seems like a very big year for Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, you mentioned that. What is it, year
So him and
4?
Mathurin are the same age,
Okay.
so it's just year 3.
Okay.
Monty Williams is at TMI Episcopal, which is a private school in San Antonio, known as Texas Military
TMI
Institute.
in a private school. It seems to be fitting.
Yeah.
There you go. There's our
told
Monty
you.
Williams update.
I guess when
on
you're
the day.
getting that kind of a paycheck for being fired by the Pistons, you can do whatever the hell
Monty
you want.
Williams.
Did they go tribute video for Carlisle tonight, or did they do that back years ago? He was a former Piston head coach.
I remember he was. I'm going to say no, they're not going to do a tribute video to Rick Carlisle tonight.
Knicks on Friday for the Pacers. That's ESPN 7:30. And again, the home opener coming up Sunday afternoon. And right now, Joel Embiid and Paul George, very iffy for that one. I'll say this here in 5 minutes. I'll say it right now. I just think the Pacers' health and depth is a huge reason why I think they should and will be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So, again, that's what the week 1 looks like for the Pacers.
Yeah, I'm already laughing at Philly. Embiid's not playing back-to-backs. Like, yeah, he's not. And guess what? George isn't going to play a lot of games either. You sign these guys. I don't know what you thought they were magically going to be healed. Practice today for the Colts. We'll find out more. Jonathan Taylor, DeForest Buckner, and others. You mentioned EJ Speed, a big name to watch as well. Shane Steichen will talk with the media coming up at about 11 o'clock. Other NFL news, Cooper Kupp is available. This is now widely being reported in the NFL. So a couple weeks here for the trade deadline. The wide receiver there with the Rams, Mike Evans, set to miss 3 games there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Deebo Samuel, late yesterday, discharged from the hospital, had pneumonia-like symptoms on Sunday. So he is out of the hospital. No idea, obviously, the next time he'll play. And the news of the morning, DeAndre Hopkins is now going to be with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. From the poorhouse to the penthouse, from Mason Rudolph and Will Levis to Patrick Mahomes. Not too bad for DeAndre Hopkins on this Tuesday.
You imagine.
Or Wednesday, whatever day it is. Wednesday.
That is the life.
He's going to go out there and have 7 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown his first game, right? Like, don't you just feel like it's going to happen?
Scrambling to see if he's riding the pine on any of my fantasy teams. College game day coming up this Saturday. Gates going to open 6:30 down there in Bloomington, the south lawn of Memorial Stadium. 9 o'clock, the show will commence. I feel like they usually announce the game day picker like
soon.
Yeah, like the Wednesday, Thursday before the game, right?
I would be, if it doesn't happen today, it's going to happen like tomorrow morning. Like, it's got to happen here soon, right?
If I took Schwarber and Buck and I gave you the field, would you want Kyle Schwarber and Joe Buck, or would you want the field?
Go ahead and give me the field. Just go ahead and give me the field. Even though I think there's a good chance it could be Buck. Just go ahead and give me the field.
Ken Nunn.
Yeah, it might be so. I mean, at this point, it's like if they don't
Call me Ken Nunn.
If they don't do it tomorrow, it's like have they not been able to find anyone who can move their schedule?
Tom
around?
Coverdale.
Man,
Shout out to the great Tom Coverdale.
Dude,
great opinion piece in IBJ a few weeks ago.
He always is this way, but McAfee is going to be on one on Saturday.
Oh,
like he's
1,000%.
always that way in College Game Day.
He wore an IU strength T-shirt I saw yesterday on the show.
Yeah, he is. He's going to be.
By the way, at some point today, I think we'll get to it. Urban Meyer had some interesting comments. Big Noon Kickoff, of course, was there in Bloomington. I thought he had some interesting comments about Indiana as an athletic department, as a football program. I want to get to that at some point.
Okay, Urban Liar. Okay, we'll see what Urban Liar thinks. Come on, I got to make that joke.
That's such an awful joke.
It is. Coming up at 9 o'clock, Jeremiah Johnson going to join us on the other end. What happens to the Pacers this season? The top storylines we'll predict and we'll tell you next. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call right here. It's a Wednesday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We were talking during the break last week. Colts' biggest favorite they had been all season long over Miami. I don't know where it finished at, but kind of right around 4 points. This week, they're the biggest underdog they've been all season, 6. Mark, you brought up, you thought you were surprised to see Jacksonville against Green Bay. Jacksonville is a smaller underdog than the Colts.
Yeah, the Colts. It's now down to 5.5 against the Texans, but the Jaguars are only 4.5 point underdogs to the Packers. And I get it that It's at Jacksonville, but even still, I would think Packers should be destroying the Jaguars, and only 4.5 points. I would jump all over that relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's, I'm trying to look at the Colts line. I'm like, does Vegas think Jonathan Taylor and DeForest Buckner are going to need another week? Am I overreading that? What am I?
Well, I think
what am I doing here?
No, I think that's two things. I think you're looking at that. I think you're looking at the fact that they played earlier, just a few weeks ago, and the Texans won. Now this was a close game, so it's not like it was 30-10. So yeah, maybe that actually works on your side. And so I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. The play of Anthony Richardson. I mean, Nico Collins being out again. C.J. Stroud passed for under 100 yards, but they did have the lead with a minute and a half to go in the game. With a chance to win. That's a long way of me saying I have absolutely no idea. I'm not touching it because if I take the Colts +6, they'll lose by 14. I'm not touching it. I'm a curse. I'm staying away. I tell you, this past weekend, I know we're getting to the Pacers. Thank God for Jason Hammer coming in here on Thursdays. Thank God, okay? We can play this back for him. Any bet that I put out there myself, I feel like I lost every bet. And I don't know about you guys, but without even looking, like the entire 1 o'clock games, I didn't even check my fantasy. I knew it was that bad.
The only thing I'm seemingly getting right this year is predicting the right result of the Colts game.
Yeah,
I think I'm 6-1 on Colts games.
Good for you.
And I literally can't win a single bet outside of that.
Good for you. Well, I wouldn't even say start betting the Colts because as soon as you start doing that heavily, it's going to end up like your Purdue bet.
And again, it's not always betting the Colts. I bet Houston and Jacksonville and things like that. So again, we will get into this more as the week moves along. It's Andrew Catalan Tiki Barber on the call. Spiro Ditas must have the week off.
Well, they've done.
That'll be Colts and Texans Sunday at 1.
Catalan and Tiki have done, this is what, the third game?
I was going to say, I feel like they were the early September broadcast.
Maybe them and Spiro are splitting like ride shares or something like that, splitting cab fares.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah. Can I have your Jags notes? I need them for this week. All right, coming up later today, Andy mentioned this during the break too. It is the announcement of 5-star Braylon Mullins, the senior at Greenfield Central High School. Certainly his recruitment has picked up massively in the last 6 months or so. That final 3, it's UConn, Carolina, Indiana, correct?
Yes, and I guess this is going to be like 4 or 5 o'clock tonight. He's going to do it. He's going to do it on 24/7 Sports. Indiana fans mostly. Listen, I'm sure Peegs has been all over this for weeks. 24/7 is going to have a stream for it. So is that Adam Finkelstein, I believe?
Yeah, Jalen Harrelson made his announcement on that. So certainly, again.
What if it's UConn?
A big-time recruitment there. Well,
isn't the thought that it is UConn, I guess?
Yeah, probably not ideal to lose a couple 5-stars in your backyard that they've been on, it seems like, for a long time, right?
Well, I mean, Indiana's a huge finalist here along with North Carolina. I'll text my North Carolina guy and see what he thinks, but I guess I thought it was kind of a UConn lean at one point. Of course,
the crystal balls are for UConn.
The last time we talked about him was 2 weeks ago when he announced that he was going to announce today, and I thought it was 2 weeks ago. Like, I was all jacked up. I'm like, it's a Wednesday. We're going to get, kids either going to go to Indiana, which is good fodder, or not go to Indiana, and we can, beat Mike Woodson over the head over that. So, oh well, UConn, we'll see.
I am pretty bullish. I think the Pacers will be a top 4 seed.
Okay.
I think they will have home court in round 1. Depth. I just think it's real. I think it matters in an 82-game grind. I weirdly think the Pacers have 2 stars that want to play. And I know Tyrese Halliburton has had some injuries, so that might be something to keep an eye on. But like, if the Pacers lose Halliburton, easy for me to say, or Siakam for multiple weeks, I don't think it's the end of the world. Like, I think you can still survive a bit. Whereas, like, I see a Paul George is out for Philly, or I'm watching the Knicks, even the Celtics last night put guys into the game. I'm like, damn, they're 1 or 2 injuries away from, Miles McBride and Luke Cornett playing a ton of minutes.
I think Miles McBride may have led him in scoring yesterday.
Whereas like the Pacers, it'd be like Mathurin, or it would be Toppin. And like, again, I just feel a little bit more comfortable about that situation there. So if I had to throw a win total out there, I think it should be north of 50. And I think this is a top 4 seed when it's all said and done.
Have you placed your bet yet?
I did. I was able to find it yesterday. The odds weren't as great as certainly they've been in the last 2 years, but bet is placed.
Okay, so
50-plus wins.
50-plus wins.
Got a little juice on that. I think the over-under is like 46.5, 47.5.
Sure.
But I I think you see so many teams, and Philly was probably the poster child of it last year, of a team on paper that many had pegged as a 2-3 seed preseason. They have a ton of injuries. They've got guys missing various amounts of the season. Next thing you know, they're in the play-in.
I know.
And so I just think Indiana is equipped for it. I mean, Ben Shepherd might not get clocked tonight.
Yeah,
we'll see about Isaiah Jackson's minute situation. Ben Shepherd was also starting in the finals for you. And I think continuity and retention is real. I think it's important to get off to a good start, even though they have the schedule. It's a little tougher. So that's where I'm going, Pacers preseason prediction.
Yeah, I think the biggest question for me is going to be, are they going to have a slow start here? And I don't know the answer to that. Like, are they going to start slow? Obviously not the Pistons tonight. We'll see what happens with the Sixers. At the Knicks, at the Magic, we know how good the Celtics have been. So I'm going to go between the over-under and you. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
That's a fine-tooth comb.
I'm gonna go 49.
Easy, Mark.
I'm gonna go 49 wins. Okay, is where I'm going, and I'm gonna say they
find
finish.
that bet. You could get a lot of money if you predict the exact win total.
I'm not. People should not listen to my stupid predictions anyway. I'm gonna go 49 wins. I'm gonna say. My biggest question is everybody else. Is that going to be good enough for a 4 or a 5 seed? Last year, it would have been. So I'm with you. Like, Philly on paper should be like a 3 seed in the East. But I think Embiid's missing 30 games this year.
Well, look at the Bucks right now. Middleton's not going to start the season. Again, they fall into that boat, too.
I think Paul George is going to miss 30-some-odd games this season. I mean, they're already talking about Embiid not playing back-to-backs. That's not a surprise. I don't know why everyone's upset with that. I mean, I think the Knicks are going to be good. Obviously, they lose. I do think Boston and the Knicks will be ahead of them. But that third and fourth is what's bothering me. So I'm right around – listen, I'm right around 4 and 5. Like, are they good enough to push to that 4? Are they going to drop down because they will have some attrition? They'll have injuries. They'll have 2 weeks where they're not playing very good basketball. But I expect them a little bit like you, hosting, getting that 4 seed, hosting a first-round playoff series, winning that first-round playoff series. I was listening yesterday. Tony East was on. I think it was with Jake and Jimmy. East was on, and I kind of am with him. If they get in, to me, they can beat anybody as long as you're not facing Boston in round number 1.
And not to get too, it's probably stupid to start looking at standings, of course, on October 23rd. But, ideally, you'd be the 2 or the 3. Because if you're the 4, you get Boston around 2.
So then you don't want to be the 4 seed.
Can you get even higher? Which, it's a dumb comment to make.
Could I ask you this? Like, one thing we haven't talked about, we've talked about, the officiating might be different and, they're not going to be able to sneak up on people. Carlisle talked to us about that yesterday. There's all these different narratives when you go into a season. The one narrative we haven't talked about, and we talked about, Matherin for 10 minutes earlier. We haven't talked about what if Jarris Walker becomes pretty good?
Well,
like game 30, we're looking around saying, oh, okay, this guy's actually pretty damn good and he's getting better.
And a little counter to that, does Aaron Nesmith end the season in the starting lineup?
Somebody will not be in the starting lineup that started in the starting lineup, and he would be the number 1 guy that you would point to. I mean, last year they had several moves to their lineup and their starting lineup, right?
Now, again, they infused him and Nembhard in there for defense. Do we see a Matherin or a Walker would seemingly be the 2 guys on that end? So,
okay.
To me, the playing time debates, the second unit debates, the rotational back and forth, all of this is a great problem to have. All of this is exactly what a head coach dreams of. And again, an 82-game grind, it is real. And in a league where you see a lot of stars sit, I don't think the Pacers fall into that boat. And if they are going to miss time, I don't think it's DEFCON like it is for some other teams. So the East is certainly deep. It's the early part of the schedule.
Yep.
Has a lot of meat to it. But at the same time, if you're a team that runs it back with all this continuity, staff and player-wise, you probably should be equipped to handle it better than some other teams.
Last thing I'll say on the Eastern Conference, and we'll take a break. I'm watching yesterday. I'm not overreacting. They just won the championship. right now, we don't know who is going to win out west. OKC is the overwhelming favorite, but, that's a young team that needs to grow up, right? They need to actually go and do it in the postseason. And some of these other teams, are the Nuggets, are they going to be able to get, fully back? Golden State is an older team. Dallas, do they have the fortitude to make a second run in back-to-back years? I don't know. Does it feel like we're entering the 3-4 year era of the Boston Celtics?
After last night, my thought was, are they going to win 80 games or 81 games this year?
They look pretty good, and they're going to have issues, but, that's the first thing I thought as, the Pacers are actually in the conference with the dominant team that has been the West so much of the time, but it's not the West right now. I could easily see OKC winning 55 games and not making it to the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, because we've seen them do that in the past.
Again, for Boston, the fact that their 2 stars enter a year pissed off after they won a title, that's not supposed to be how it happens.
I know. Tatum was so good.
But Jaylen Brown gets left off the Olympic team, and Jason Tatum gets benched in the Olympics. And look at Tatum last night.
Yeah, they're pissed off. So, again, Celtics won big last night. Reminder, coming up at 9 o'clock, Jeremiah Johnson. We'll keep the Pacer conversation going with him. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 2 next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Opening night for your Indiana Pacers and what is, in my opinion, the most anticipated Pacers season in a decade. That is tonight in Detroit. Jeremiah Johnson, you think he went to Windsor last night? He joins us in 10 minutes.
I doubt he did, but
stumbling back.
I would.
I've been there when I wasn't 21. You only have to be 18 in Windsor to drink.
Throw Denary in the Uber to get him home.
Let's get some ketchup chips.
The problem is coming back to United States. It's a little bit different than you just kind of walk in.
Yeah,
it's a little bit
Quinn
different.
Buckner's voice from the crabs table from here. Smothered chicken, he's yelling as the dice are being thrown there.
I have lost, I'll just say it kindly, I've lost my ass at that casino in Detroit. I just absolutely, every blackjack hand I lost, KB.
I'm going to guess people have lost a lot if you follow my drift.
Yeah, but if you walk in, you can just feel it in the air. And I felt that it was going to be bad in the air, and I told a buddy I wasn't feeling good. And
sounds like a Phil Collins remix.
It does. He lost several hundred, and I was in a bad spot. We just kind of went home. So that's what we did.
Again, JJ.
That would have been a fun car ride.
Yeah, really.
JJ joins us here in 10 minutes. I thought Urban Meyer had a really interesting comment about the IU football program Saturday. Again, Big Noon Kickoff was down there. Kurt Signetti joined him after the game up on the podium or up on their platform down there. But Urban said he called the IU football program the enigma of the Big Ten.
Okay. All right. Did he do this in front of Signetti?
He did. I'm trying to think. Was Signetti walking up at the time?
Okay,
it might have been like
all right.
They were kind of waiting for Signetti.
Right,
you
sure.
know how
they're vamping.
Yeah. And I first off, I think Urban does a great job on TV. I think he's really good. I find him very insightful. I think he puts a lot of thought into what he's saying, and I hold his opinion in pretty high regard.
Okay, yeah.
And for him to say that, and he described it, he's like, this is a school and a university that loves athletics.
Yep.
Has a massive alumni base.
Yep.
Spends money.
Oh, yeah, a lot of money.
Has resources.
Yep.
Why are they the laughingstock of college football?
Well, and now you feel like their NIL program is better than many.
Sure.
Right? In the country.
Urban and this to me was a thought that Urban probably had at Ohio State and, his days as an assistant at Notre Dame or Bowling Green or, those places that he's been of like, why is this not – this should not be the school that in my 4 years has 3 Big Ten wins. And, the homecoming picture is just when Ohio State comes to town. Like, it shouldn't be that. And in a very quick rebuild, and we said it to Pat Forty last week, and certainly conference realignment has aided them. Now, to me, it's viewed as a job that is somewhat coveted. Like, if we started to rank out the top, 50 jobs in college football – IU football would have never sniffed that list prior to, probably 24, 36 months ago. And again, conference realignment has aided it. But I think Kurt Signetti has also brought hey, people, wake up here. You can do something here. Yes, it's going to take, and I know that the Hitch reference didn't really land with Kurt Signetti when we had him on, but I choose to think he is Will Smith and Hitch. It's going to take that type of person that some might say his comments are delusional, whereas he would say, if attitude's going to change, confidence is going to have to change first. And I'm going to do it by walking or talking the talk like none other, and then we're going to have to walk it in the fall here. So I just thought it was an interesting comment from Urban.
Yeah, Brandon tweeted us, and I did not hear this. He says, I heard it was contentious after the game with Signetti and Urban Meyer. I didn't hear any of that. Like, absolutely none of it. But Signetti talks back to everybody. So if you say that Signetti was snarky about something Urban Meyer said, that wouldn't surprise me at all. The guy was on the job for 3 hours and said Purdue sucks, and so does, everybody else.
He said he was going to be at the Big Ten championship game coaching in it the next year.
He might be.
He strutted up to that Fox set like he struts like a peacock right now. And he can, and he should, and like that. It was. I guess I'm trying to look at what Brandon was saying. I'm like, could I have seen that? And
sure,
yeah, I thought like Mark Ingram was acting like they're best friends, and Signetti was kind of like, hey man,
yeah, right.
And I'm like,
he's never met Mark Ingram before in his life.
Well, I guess he recruited him to Alabama.
I guess a good point.
It was part of that, but I'm
point.
like, if you're Signetti, don't you kind of just like act like you're best friends with Mark Ingram to help out yourself from a recruiting standpoint?
Well, he's Signetti.
He is an odd cat.
He is getting as much love as you could possibly get. The only program that I would equate it to at all would be Kentucky. You know, Mark Stoops took over now, 13 years ago, and I know people here aren't following that. He made that. He's won 10 games a couple times. He made that a respectable program. Now, he tried to leave this offseason because he knew they were going to have a lean year or two. I actually think Mark Stoops is not very good of a coach. He has found his way to some wins. I think Cignetti is a pretty good coach, and Cignetti's got the spot where people love him. They don't hate his arrogance right now. They're celebrating his arrogance.
There is no fan base in college football that loves their head coach. Ohio State wants to fire Ryan Day.
Such a great point.
Penn State is ranked top, 3 right now?
They don't believe in James Franklin.
They're like,
no.
James Franklin's done.
No.
I feel like Texas is like, Sark,
well,
no.
Alabama hates Kalen DeBoer already. Yeah.
I mean, Kurt Cignetti's the most beloved human in college sports right now.
It's a great point. You're exactly right. I mean, Notre Dame fans, you guys don't hate Marcus Freeman, but you're not sold on Marcus Freeman.
We are Navy is up 7-0 away from the message boards setting off.
What time is that? It's a high noon game, isn't it?
It's a nooner.
Well, at least you get it over with. You can hit the pumpkin
so the
patch
rumor,
up at
I guess,
4 o'clock.
is if that game was at the Naval Academy, they would have gone there.
Okay.
Game day. And then the other rumor I saw was
okay, well, I mean, that's not crazy.
If Texas would have beat Georgia, they would have gone to Vandy because they've never been to Vandy, I guess.
Yeah, Vandy has a new facility there. Not that it matters.
Technically, they've been to IU. Again, not the Saturday college game day.
They did the
fake game day here. So we'll see if we get a game day guest picker coming up today. I hope I want Corso to have the presence, obviously, because I think he should be celebrating this moment.
Sure.
But I don't want that to be the guest picker.
No, that can't be the guest picker. We got to have somebody else. I don't know. We just got to have somebody else. I don't think it's going to be Mark Cuban. I guess Joe Buck. I feel like if it was going to be Buck,
are we trying to get Joe Buck on, Mark?
We are trying. We are efforting.
Mark has 95 emails out right now. Mark is on the edge.
I would love to have Joe Buck on
as
there.
Me
too.
As a radio producer, Mark is on the edge that if it doesn't happen, if we get to Thursday and Mark's emails, texts, and calls aren't answered, he's going to be upset wherever Mark's going to be driving on Thursday and Friday across the country.
City, baby.
I was going to say, I thought Mark had put a lot of effort into it, and then he informed us he's in 2 fantasy basketball leagues. And
unintentionally.
That
was not on purpose.
He accidentally
that told me
signed up.
everything I needed to know.
Yahoo swindled me twice. I was just trying to check my fantasy football, and somehow my thumb hovered above the join league, and I'm checking football on Sunday, and all of a sudden it says, your league starts in 5 minutes. I'm like, what league? So all of a sudden I'm drafting fantasy basketball.
You're in a league with people you don't have any...
2 completely random leagues that I had no intention of joining.
Yeah, that's the bottom. That's the bottom.
I got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, though.
Mark's debating Khalil Ware, Zach Edey in round 9.
Yep.
Good stuff there. We'll still have a sound of the day, but coming up next, Jeremiah Johnson joins us. The good and bad, and what does he see with the Detroit Pistons? We'll talk about it all. We'll talk about it all as the Pacers get ready for the Pistons tonight there in Detroit. 9 o'clock hour around the corner right here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tonight in Detroit, the Pacers and the Pistons. Game 1 of 82. Pacers favored by 4.5 in this one. Off to New York Friday night and the home opener. Kind of a weird matinee on Sunday for the home opener with the Philadelphia 76ers. The man you'll see tonight on your TV coverage, 6:30. The pregame show will begin. Or I don't know, maybe they do 6. Do you do Jeremiah Johnson, do you go full hour for the first game or do you just do a half hour?
Well, traditionally, the first game, and great to be with you all this morning, has been a home game, which then helped make it easier to do the 1 hour pregame show. But for a variety of reasons, and we did a special season preview show that I believe will air at 6, and then our Pacers live show will come on at 6:30 tonight, courtside from Little Caesars Arena. So I believe technically there will be 1 hour of pregame coverage, although the first 30 minutes is more of a magazine-style show that's already produced. And then Eddie Gill and I live on the court at 6:30 for the traditional Pacers Live.
Year what for Jeremiah Johnson with Pacers Television?
Year 11.
Year 11. And I thought this as we were about to bring you on. Are you the tallest sideline reporter in the league?
That is a good question.
Might be.
Yeah, I'll have to do a little bit of research. We'll have some downtime in New York, so I'll look into that. I do think that I want to give a shout-out to my producer, Ken Sothman, who joined basically about a month into that first season. He was working with me at Fox 59. I have to think we might be the longest-tenured pregame host / pregame producer duo in the NBA at 11 years. So, yeah, we're excited. And we were talking last night, just looking around the room. There was a team dinner in Detroit, and Miles Turner is entering his 10th NBA season. If you just go back to his rookie season, the names, the faces, how many of them have changed. You consider basically Ken and I and Kristen Airy, Quinn Buckner, Mark Boyle, Miles Turner, and the training staff is about all that is the same from back then. And there's been a lot of different iterations of the Pacers over those 10-plus years, but I think they're in a really good spot right now.
Well, congrats on that. Jeremiah Johnson, of course, Kristen Airy, Quinn Buckner, Eddie Gill and company. Again, tonight that starts game 1 of 82. JJ, you'd be the perfect person to ask. I said this to lead off the show. I think it's the most anticipated season in 10 years. And I know some could point to maybe the Oladipo year, but to me, when you get as far as you did last year, and yet you're not running it back with a bunch of 30-year-olds. Like, you're running it back with a younger team. Siakam was only here for a half year. Halliburton was banged up. And then, Mathurin and Walker offer these potentially, intriguing young players that could grow into even bigger pieces for you. To me, I got to go back to the Paul George era. What would you say in terms of anticipation?
I think that's accurate. And at times during last season, we were asked about, how much fun that season was and whether it compared to any. And I'll really, from my time, put the 2017-18 season and last season in similar spots, but you've got to put last season ahead because of all the high-end success, because you played Memorial Day weekend, because you advanced to the finals of a new and exciting in-season tournament. And the similarities were, I don't think that outside of Indiana, there were the expectations, although I think there were more expectations last season than that 2017-18 season where they came out of nowhere. But I think from last season to this season, you're correct. It's basically the second season that the team went to the Eastern Conference Finals. There was a lot of excitement to start that season. A lot of things went a little bit off track, even though they did get the number 1 seed in the middle of that year. But this is the most anticipated season. Everywhere I went in the summer, people were just saying they can't wait to see this team get started. And I just happened to walk by Tyrese Halliburton. He had a big old smile on his face. He said he feels like a kid on Christmas. He says, we're back. So that feeling that you fans have, trust me, the players have it as well.
Jeremiah Johnson with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. JJ, listen, I want to ask you about, how this team can get better. I assume the move from Bally's to FanDuel Sports Network, everything is totally the same with you guys. We noticed this morning that our app updated, so I'm good to go tonight at 6:30.
Yeah, it's basically a naming rights change. All of the infrastructure should be the same, but hopefully improved. If there were some issues that people had from a technical perspective, it's still a different product than if people had previously have a FanDuel account. Your Bally Sports account will work, and you need to update your app. And if you had watch the games on a channel, you will have it on that same channel. A lot of people texted me over the last couple of days wondering what had changed. So not as much a change as you might think, although we will continue to strive for improvements and definitely hope for a good viewing experience for all that have it, and we hope as many that can access the product will.
All right, so all right, go ahead, pop your mic on.
I'll just say,
there you go.
Amen to that. Jeremiah Johnson doesn't want or need me to say anything more than that. I agree.
He doesn't want you to say anything more than that.
I agree.
That's all he wants you to
agree.
say. If this team, if we get, 25, 30 games in, whatever, maybe halfway point, we say, well, damn, this Pacer team is better than last year. How would that look? What would be the things that they have improved on that we could maybe say that here in the next, maybe month and a half, 2 months or so?
You think about last season and the way it started the first couple of months. When people watched the Pacers or talked about them, all they would mention is this best ever type of offense, these numbers that were video game-like, and you specifically maybe think back to that game against Atlanta with two teams scoring 150 points. If this team is going to be better, they might not be as good offensively, but they've got to just do a little bit better job defensively. And the preseason, honestly, was a little bit concerning, but I'm choosing to take the route that over the course of a season, you're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs. You're going to have time in the middle of December to freak out about a 2 or 3 game losing streak, because that happens in every season. I'm choosing to not really freak out about preseason games. I'm going to take the approach that it's like an NFL preseason and that things will be different starting tonight. Now, they know they have to make some strides. Rebounding kind of goes hand in hand with defense, and so that's probably the biggest thing that I'm going to be watching. If the game is close, 5 minutes left, and every possession matters, can the Pacers be the team that, secures the defensive rebound, but then that allows them to go and execute on the offensive end? So defense is a wide-ranging topic. It's an easy one to say, but I guess specifically to secure more defensive rebounds when it matters most, that'll help this team, reach their goals.
He is on the sideline, of course, the pregame host, postgame host as well. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers Television, with us here. Payless Liquors Hotline. JJ, Isaiah Jackson questionable for tonight with a groin injury. I am kind of curious if he doesn't play, is it James Wiseman, or do they play like Obi Toppin a little bit more small ball? And then I would assume that would get Ben Shepherd some clock. Do you have a thought one way or the other on that?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways they could go, because if you think back to last season, and sometimes it depended on how many of your guys were fully healthy. Rick Carlisle, I think, right now has confidence in 11 players, but he's not likely to use an 11-man rotation. So if you pull one of those 11 away and you say that Isaiah Jackson is not available, then it would make sense Ben Shepherd would get an opportunity. However, it also wouldn't surprise me if maybe at times the first half goes to a 10-man rotation and maybe the second half is a 9-man rotation. If the game calls for it, as you mentioned, perhaps it's Obi Toppin at the 5 and you're small ball and you're getting out and you're beating the other second unit up and down the court. And then it's a question. Do you mix and match 4 reserves with 1 starter? Let's say Obi Toppin's your 5 and maybe Pascal Siakam has more second unit minutes where he can be the focal point of that offense. So it's a little too early to tell, but what I would say is each and every game might be a little bit different depending upon the personnel. And I think it's one of the reasons you make the move in the offseason to sign Obi Toppin long-term. He fits the personality of this team. He's not a starter, even though he got a pretty good contract, but he can give you that versatility with second units where he can be your 4, he can be your 5, you can go fast. If you want to be bigger and play a guy like Wiseman alongside of him, you can do that. So rebounding will probably, again, tell the story with that. If they're getting beat on the boards, you need a guy like Wiseman in. If you're able to do a better job with that with your guys that you have and be faster, you might not need him.
Yeah, I thought Wiseman, I thought he was actually not bad at times in the preseason. I thought he was pretty good. So, the Pacers are a place you can come in, do what they ask you to do, and kind of resurrect your career. So that'll be interesting as well. Jeremiah Johnson here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I know there'll be the 2 guys we single out, whether it's fair or unfair. Jarris Walker, Benedict Mathurin. Being around those guys, JJ, any gut feeling how they start their respective seasons tonight?
Well, I hope they start the way they started training camp. I watched those first 2 practices, and obviously there's always a lot of intensity and emotion in the very beginning of training camp. At times in the second or third week, maybe you get a little fatigued and worn out. But those were the two guys that really shined to start training camp. They came into this season, I believe, with the most to prove and the ones that have the biggest opportunity to change the trajectory of the franchise, perhaps long-term, not just this season or this upcoming playoffs, when you consider where they were drafted, some of the skills that they have, the athleticism, and the age that they are. So a lot will be expected. What I would caution the fans is Jarace Walker, you don't need to treat him like a rookie, but he's not quite a second-year player either. And so there are going to be the ups and downs. And if he comes out tonight and he doesn't make a big impact, take a breath, allow him to get into a little bit of a routine and flow, because he never really had that opportunity last season. They're going to give him those opportunities. He's going to have some big nights, but he is going to have some other nights. And for Matherin, you have higher expectations. You want him, if he's healthy, to be that guy that is getting you 15 points every single night, that is also able to show improved defense. And he's one of those guys, if he doesn't start, and it looks like they're going to go with a starting lineup very similar to what they showed in most of those playoff games, maybe he's the guy that's on the court at the end, and that's ultimately what really matters.
Jeremiah Johnson is with us again tonight. The Pacers begin game 1 of 82. It is in Detroit, taking on the Pistons. You guys 76 of 82 games, is that right, JJ, on that number you're going to broadcast?
Yeah, with the in-season tournament, I believe they're calling it the NBA Cup right now. There are 2 games yet to be even scheduled. And so if those games are not in Las Vegas and they become more quote-unquote regular season games, then you would most likely up that number by 2, although they could still be national broadcasts. So for sure 76. There is flexing like we've seen with the NFL. Did a little flexing this week with the Colts. Things could change. So, high 70s. We'll have plenty of opportunities on your airwaves, and obviously with the team, day in, day out, hopefully can give you the best coverage of anyone.
Well, last one from me, a storyline we're not talking about enough, and let me throw a couple your way. Feel free to take one of them or come up with one on your own. Obviously, Matherin and Walker, we've probably hammered in the ground. Turner's in a contract year. That's something we've talked about a lot. A few that I'm like, man, we should probably give it more thought. Tyrese Halliburton was injured for half of last season, and when he wasn't, he was putting up numbers that frankly were video game-like. Is he healthy? Does that look like an MVP type of player that frankly I thought he was up until about Christmas? Does that look like that for 82 games? Pascal Siakam was kind of traded here and never really got a chance to catch his breath. Should we talk about that a little bit more? And then Andrew Nembhard in the conference finals. Is that real? Can that be there alongside of Halliburton? One of those, another storyline. What are we not talking enough about?
I think that you're pretty accurate in all of the assessments that you made. Tyrese Halliburton was quick to say that he never really played fully healthy with Pascal Siakam last season until the playoffs. And I would probably even say, even though he said maybe that Bucks series or the start of the Knicks series, he was fully healthy, he was still dealing with some back ailments. He would come to the bench and put the wrap around. And so even if the hamstring was healed, I'm not sure that he was fully healthy with Siakam. So let's put those two together, start to finish. If fully healthy, you're going to see this team, raise its ceiling quite a bit. I think Andrew Nembhard, for where they drafted him, it's going to be the steal of the draft, and he's someone you want on your team for years to come because of what he can provide in terms of backcourt versatility, how he gives some breaks to Tyrese Halliburton in that starting unit. And despite, there's going to be the matchups, like Jalen Brunson had his number a little bit, he still is an above-average backcourt defender on a team that needs to improve its defense. That's the reason he's going to be on the court opening lineups tonight. One that's not talked a lot about right now that I've been thinking about the last few days, and I was thinking about last season, is three-point shooting. It's been a hot topic around the league of more teams are really emphasizing, hey, we want to play the analytic game. We want to get this many three-point shots up. I think Charlotte was just out of control in that preseason, and you saw even last night the Celtics making 17 threes in the first half. I thought last season, and we could go back, and I might even do that before the pregame show tonight because I was talking about it with Chris Teneri. When the team shot 35% from three, I thought they'd have a pretty good chance to win because you had a feeling their volume would be at a high level. And for most of the season, they weren't necessarily, shooting the most in terms of volume, but they were in the top 5, I believe, in percentage. And so, you started last year with Buddy Hield. He's the guy that's going to help your three-point shooting. I'm looking at the roster right now. You're going to need a guy like Aaron Nesmith to be the three-point shooter he was in the first half of the season. You're going to need Tyrese Halliburton to put up a three-point percentage type of season that he did when he was healthy, not what he was sort of in the second half when, there was a time he had a little bit of a slump, and it just wasn't the same as early. So I'm going to be watching those three-point numbers over the first couple of weeks, not just the number of attempts, because I don't think that this team is actually emphasizing that as much as some of them. I don't think they want to break any records in terms of if it's not a three-point shot, it's not a good shot. But can their percentage be around 35%? Are they a good NBA three-point shooting team? Because there's going to be times in the second unit, you may have 2 of the 5 guys that aren't, quote-unquote, three-point shooters. And can your spacing still be good? And can you be a threat? And let's say, can Obi Toppin or Benedict Mathurin, can they be between 35 and 40% on the season? If they can stay hot from outside, it'll open up everything else, and I think it'll lead to a lot of wins.
Are you 6'5" or 6'6"?
Well, my program, my senior year of high school, said 6'5", and I won't tell you the difference in weights between then and now. But I definitely think I'm a real 6'4" now. You'll find out, and maybe it's happened to you, Kevin. I think you lose an inch every maybe 10 years. So I'm probably really 6'3" to 6'4" right now.
No, you are. I'm looking up at you, and I'd like to think I'm a legit 6'3".
Well, you might have lost a half an inch in the last 10 years.
Well, easy now.
That's a good point.
I added. I went to We Grow Hair Ending. I thought I added.
Well, my son, he's taller than me, and on the program, they've got him listed as 6'3", and I don't think that's fair. So he's at least 6'4". I think I'm 6'4", but we'll still have to go back, and I will keep my own personal log over the course of the season to see if I'm looking up on any other sideline reporters. But I have a feeling I might be, if not one, I'm at least top 2.
Imagine a little 3-on-3 tournament. Denari running the point. JJ a little stretch forward.
I like that.
Quinn just doing a little bit of everything. Eddie Gill can sub in.
I mean, we're surprised Denari's leaving his pimped out backyard that he has. The sheds and the fireplaces and the waterfalls and everything else that he's got going on.
Will we get a look at that before the end of the first quarter tonight, JJ? Will we get a Denari backyard?
I actually think we'll probably pass on that. If we had the 1-hour pregame show, we might have had time to fit that in, but it probably isn't going to make the cut tonight. One of those, like, how did you spend your summer segments? If we do that, I'll have to check with Ken Salton, but if we do that, it'll probably be strictly the players and not the broadcasters.
7 o'clock tonight, nothing changing on where you viewed the Pacers from last season. 6:30, sorry. 6:30 coverage begins, 7 o'clock tip, and then off to New York Friday, and again, the matinee Sunday for the home opener. JJ, safe travels, cannot wait. Thank you as always, sir.
All right, thank you both.
Jeremiah Johnson, right there, Payless Liquors Hotline.
You know what I randomly thought, all these NBA teams, especially NBA teams that are flying around, like I think it was JJ, he showed he kind of laid out his clothes that he's going to have the next several days. He's on the road and then it's, off to New York. If you and your wife were flying around, you would get those miles on a credit card or some account. Who gets the miles for an NBA team? Does that just go right to does it just go right to the ownership? Who gets the miles for, however many people they have traveling to fly to
just
Detroit?
Goes right to Herb.
Then, right to Herb, Detroit to the Knicks. I don't know why I thought of that the other day. And did you see?
Did you set your clothes out the night before?
I don't think I've ever set clothes out for anything.
I set my clothes out the night before.
Yeah, okay. So I can see you doing that. Me and Mark don't. I mean, obviously.
Well, you guys turn on the lights in the morning and wake up your
kids are
wife?
sleeping. I'm not trying to wake them up.
Right. So how do you find what clothes you're going to wear?
You got a flashlight on your phone. You just do a quick gander. This works.
Here's what's happened.
What's fresh out of the hamper?
My stuff has been. I'm pushed to the basement. We have a laundry room. My stuff, a lot of it's been pushed to the basement since I'm up. You don't want to wake up the baby, So I'm pushed to the basement, so I can be as loud as I want to be. Basically, I'm in my own catacombs. That's where I am. I'm down there in a dungeon by myself. Did you see Jarris Walker had to wear the yellow onesie?
Oh, I did see that.
He said he lost a bet. I should have asked JJ what kind of bet he lost, although I'm worried about that. That could be anything.
So how about this? The great Tucker Barnhart, diehard Pacer fan, chimes in here. He goes, the traveling secretary gets those miles.
Okay, so it was a
But
good, it was
he goes,
a good question.
and if they aren't cheap, the players get them at year's end. He said the Cubs gave the players theirs.
Okay, so they split it up amongst the players. I mean, that's a ton of miles, thousands upon thousands
Imagine
of miles.
the traveling secretary getting that.
I mean, perks of the job, I'd say.
I mean, that man or woman could literally fly after the season, could fly anywhere, first class, free.
I mean, it is a lot of work. I don't want to act like it's not a lot of work.
Well, sure, but it's a great perk. People die for that perk, man. By the way, I did update it updated for me. The FanDuel app looks just like the Bally's app.
Yeah.
So if you load
it just opened up for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be nervous. It looks exactly the same.
Oh, I'll be nervous at 7:01.
I'm sure you will. God.
7-day free trial still there.
And right now, if you sign up for the season, I did see you could save 10%, which I know isn't a lot, but it'd save you.
Look at you carrying the water for FanDuel and Bally. Is that a side gig you're doing unbeknownst to us?
A couple dollars a month. I do get the St. Louis Blues on here, and I'm thinking, could I give them the Blues back, and I could save maybe $5 a month? If I just
take this.
If I just got no hockey and no Cincinnati Reds, could I maybe get half off if you just take the baseball? No offense to Tucker Barnhart.
People are weeping at the sight of LeBron and Bronny on the court last night. I tend to think our sound of the day, which Mark, maybe we'll play this in about 10.
Sure.
Really, really cool, genuine moment from the Colts game on Sunday involving Dallas Clark. I thought it was awesome. We'll play that here. Upcoming in a few, Andy Sweeney. Go ahead and check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
I feel bad saying keep the Reds now, knowing that Tucker Barnhart's listening. I feel bad saying that. All right, let's start with the Pacers.
Well, you got to be the traveling secretary, it sounds like, for the Reds.
Sounds like not a bad job. 6:30 tonight, right here on the Fan. It's the Pistons. It's the Pistons and the Pacers there in Detroit. Let me give you two sounds here. We haven't heard from Rick Carlisle. This is his presser. Yesterday, I believe. The Pistons, they're going to be ready for tonight.
I'm very certain that they've pointed to this first game in a lot of ways. So we're going to need to be ready.
Yeah, he said that 4 or 5 times. They added a few new players, obviously Tobias Harris being one of those players, so we'll see what happens tonight. This is a 2-second answer. I figured I would play it. Halliburton was asked, hey, the starting unit hasn't been good. Carlisle called you guys out. Are you ready to go tonight?
We'll be ready for Wednesday.
That's basically all he said. So I figured I would at least throw that out there. Halliburton gave a quick look at, I don't know if it was Dustin DePirac. He said, no, we're going to be ready, big boy. You don't worry about it. We're good.
4.5-point favorite, the Pacers in this one. Again, Isaiah Jackson, questionable with a groin injury. All right, last night's association, the Celtics look like they'll go 82-0. Jason Tatum was absurd. They beat what did I say earlier? They beat the piss out of the Knicks.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that?
Oh, you've said it multiple times.
Yeah, you said it at 7:45.
Let it fly so far.
I just thought that was an accurate description for last night. Mikal Bridges' jump shot looked like Charles Barkley's golf swing.
What happened? What's the story there with his jump shot looking so bad?
I thought he was a fine shooter, honestly. That looked weird. To me, LeBron looked like he was 22 again, dominant there as the Lakers beat.
That was just Bronny James you were looking at.
Yeah, it was Bronny.
Bronny played 2 minutes into the second quarter, threw up a couple shots, neither went in. That was that.
My only hot take on the Bronny thing was, why did the Warriors let it slip? Why did they want it out there that they were really considering taking Bronny in the second round, but didn't because they respected LeBron James? Like, really?
Well, didn't they have the pursuit of him?
Yeah.
Remember we had, what's his name? We had Woj on the show that day.
I remember. So, by the way, you seen Shams at all on ESPN? You make anything of how he's doing? Any critiquing from Kevin Bowen? Yeah, he's been good.
You know who we haven't talked about with College Game Day picker? I just got these odds sent to me. Isaiah Thomas.
Zeke, okay.
Odds for who the picker for College Game Day.
Cuban, you can bet on anything.
26%, Isaiah 17%, Schwarber and Buck 14%.
Okay.
Mike Woodson at 10%.
Oh, Mike Woodson.
Listen, you can't.
And Victor Oladipo.
You want some
7%.
energy.
I can't.
The field gets 10%.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone I would want less than Mike Woodson.
Can you imagine him trying to hype up the crowd?
I mean, plus now
I've seen sloths with more energy.
He should. Well, not only that, he also isn't liked right now. Like Indiana fans are.
What do you mean? You see what they did in the portal?
Yeah. Well, I think Indiana fans are excited but they're not happy with Mike Woodson. With Zeke, he can go up there. He's an all-time great. Schwarber, everyone loves him. Joe Buck, now
Let's kick some ass.
Yeah, let's do it.
They didn't kill us.
Thanks, Mike.
Tom Allen snapping his fingers maybe up there.
Goodness.
All right,
Yeah,
couple
get
other
him out there.
items of note. DeAndre Hopkins, conditional 4th, 5th rounder to the Chiefs. That happened earlier this morning. The Titans stink. And seemingly every quality receiver, somewhat quality receiver, probably the better way to describe it, is going to AFC teams. Braylon Mullins, that announcement coming today, the Greenfield Central Star. IU, North Carolina, Connecticut on that final 3. Thursday Night Football tomorrow night, Vikings and Rams. What else am I missing here?
That's about it. Mike Evans set to miss 3 weeks. Let's see, the Browns officially have a name Jameis Winston as their starter. Cooper Kupp, he is on the trade block. The Rams may also eat some of that money. I know he's got a pretty hefty contract. So I think we may get some, I think there's going to be 2 or 3 more, at least 2 or 3 sizable moves left here in the next week and a half.
Don't see that in the NFL.
No,
Again, we're
never.
13 days away from the trade deadline. We did mention this in the 7 o'clock hour. Rest in peace to Fernando Valenzuela. Certainly that 1981 season, that mania around him.
Unreal.
The motion, frankly, just the nature of how he pitched, and that he started that 81 season with 8 straight complete games. 5 shutouts there, passing away at the age of 63. So, it's like Linsanity times 10, if you kind of compare it to, how people talk about that 81 season and what he brought, winning the Cy Young and Rookie of the Year there. So rest in peace to Fernando Valenzuela.
All right, so busy morning. We got you to 10 o'clock. Coming up in about 20 minutes, we'll have a pop quiz on the other end. We have a sound of the day. We have an I Gotta Know. So we're busy the final half an hour of the show. It's a Wednesday right here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, and Mark Dykton, I Gotta Know, coming up here in a few. I thought this was a great moment from Sunday, and shout out to the Miami Dolphins for making this possible with, I assume, Raheem Mostert was wired up. But let's set the scene for this. Andy Sweeney, Dallas Clark into the Ring of Honor.
Yep.
During the halftime. And, oftentimes the Ring of Honor spills a little bit into the visiting team coming back onto the field.
Well, we saw that. Mike McDaniel's complaining about it.
Right,
Yes,
you saw that on Sunday.
He wasn't exactly thrilled.
But there was a Dolphins player, and shout out to Calais Campbell as well, but Raheem Mostert was, I would say, he looked like a high school girl attending Taylor Swift coming up this weekend.
He was giddy.
It's the sound of the day.
Here we go.
Welcome on the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
And I want to make sure we set this up as well as we can. Feel free, guys, to chime in here. But basically, you have Mostert watching the Ring of Honor ceremony from afar, and then saying to Calais Campbell, I need to go shake Dallas Clark's hand because without him, I'm not the football player that I am. And so all of a sudden he's waiting in line and Dallas is shaking all the Ring of Honor guys, Freeney and Harrison and Peyton, etc. And Mostert chimes in there. You're going to hear the audio here in just a second. Then he goes back to the sideline with his running backs and his running backs coach and continues to fangirl over there.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, no, I think you set it up right. So I think you may hear Calais Campbell at some point, but no, I mean, he's on the bench and
so
then
this is Mostert,
he's on the field.
The Purdue product.
Yep.
With Dallas Clark.
I gotta shake his hand. I gotta shake his hand. Bro, Dallas Clark. Bro, I emulate my toughness off of him, bro. Dallas. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much, man. As a kid, man, you gave me you implemented that toughness, man. So I just want to say thank you. Run like way, Dred. All right, you keep doing it, right? Man. Congratulations, brother. Thank you so much. Congratulations, brother. That was an honor, bro. I used to watch him growing up, bro. He was a beast, bro. He the reason why I run so tough. I used to watch him and how he would catch the ball, block, all that, bro. Wow, that's crazy. Man.
Okay, number one, that's awesome sound. But number two, when I saw this on Twitter last night, I just, out of all the guys that would go up there and say what's up to Dallas Clark, I wasn't thinking a Miami Dolphins running back was going to be that guy.
No.
Good. I mean, listen, there's a lot of respect. I get it, but
sometimes you see like-minded play or similar position players.
Sure, yeah, like Mo Alley Cox or something like that.
That was Jonnu Smith.
Sure,
like maybe it wouldn't be as shocking. Mostert's a Florida kid. It's not like he didn't grow up in Big Ten country per se. He's not he's not an Iowa guy or an Illinois guy or something like that. There, yes, he did play at Purdue, but I thought that was pretty cool and pretty genuine there. And even to see Calais Campbell. Go over there. And, Dallas has said this before, Dallas Clark. Dallas Clark said part of his pregame routine at NFL stadiums was when he would get ready for a game, he would look into the team's Ring of Honor to see who was in it. And, if he didn't know a player or two, he would ask some people in the building about that. So, again, it's probably not something, at least I don't, the NFL stadiums I've been in, I don't maybe pay as close attention to that stuff, but I thought that was a cool moment from Sunday.
Yeah, it was a good job there. And I think that Mark, I don't know if you've already done this, retweet that on our show's Twitter page. I think that comes across on the radio, too. I mean, you need to see it just to see Mostert kind of wait in line there while Freedy and everyone else is talking to Dallas Clark. But some good stuff. And Dallas Clark, like one of those fit guys after the NFL.
Oh,
didn't let himself go.
He did a triathlon. Didn't we have him on, Mark?
What was that?
Yeah.
Was that 2 years ago? He did a triathlon.
So get ready.
God bless him
for
man.
that. All right, it is time for an I Gotta Know with Mark Dykton.
He's got questions.
How about a game?
They've got answers.
Hey, I'm more of a cornhole man myself.
Sports, music, movies.
What?
High fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
And everything in between.
You ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
It's time to get a glimpse into the mind of Mark Dykton.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
It's time for I Gotta Know.
Okay, you two punks, I want a good, clean fight. Let's get it on.
All right, we literally just played the sound. So, who is a celebrity or an athlete from your childhood that would get you hyped like Raheem Mostert was for Dallas Clark?
Oh, God.
Come on now.
You're going to do this to KB?
Do I need to even answer?
Well, there's a couple that I'm not sure which way you'd lean.
Well,
who would get you the most hyped?
Again, my heart is filled with a few things. My family,
Benedict Mathurin.
Notre Dame, and Eldrick Woods.
Oh, yeah, Tiger, yeah.
I don't have room in the heart for anything else.
Would you be able to actually talk to them, or would you they would be fanning towels and lifting your legs because you passed out?
What's the old saying about meeting your idols? Maybe I don't want to meet them.
Well, I think we know
what kind of don't go in a car with him. Don't drive around.
Easy. Come on.
I think we know what kind of guy Tiger Woods is.
Oh,
the course.
stop
No
it. You just give your answer and let's move on.
I love Tiger Woods, but let's go.
Moral police over here, Andy Sweeney.
Let's go with I'll go with like Michael Strahan. I like to meet Michael Strahan for some reason. Never met him. He's a good broadcaster. I think I respect him. Doesn't seem like he's too bad of a guy. I think I respect. I don't get starstruck over like athletes really much, especially anymore. I don't know.
Mark,
you give me either Michael Jordan or
Jay Cutler?
like a Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold's
You
want
to talk somebody in my wheelhouse where I would be like, that dude is larger than life? It'd be that guy.
Well, if you were in WIBC, you could go meet Kane. Isn't he like? Does he run like a small town in Tennessee?
He does. I don't know if I want to meet him at the moment.
You and Rob Kendall.
Yeah. Maybe not. But yeah, give me either of those guys.
Okay.
Two guys at the peak of their careers were just, household names. And even if you didn't watch wrestling or the NBA, you knew who those guys were. So give me that. Titans reportedly shipped DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs earlier this morning. We talked about it a little bit over here. Trade deadline's a couple of weeks out. Will the Colts be buyers, sellers, or stand pat?
Okay, I feel like this is the easiest answer on the board. They're not going to do anything, right? I mean, we'd be stunned if they did.
Is the last in-season trade Trent Richardson?
Is it?
I think it might be. I'd have to double-check that. Now,
I heard rumors that they were
I feel like we just had 6 crashes on 465, the fact that I just said that out loud, so I apologize there. Rumors interested in who, Mark?
Nate Davis from the Bears, who's been benched because he's not playing well, but I can't.
On the offensive line?
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me there. So, when you look at some of these selling teams, I have thought, what about a defensive end on some of these selling teams? Samson Ebukam and Tyquan Lewis, and, I don't think you'd stunt Latu's growth that much with that. But, if they think Lewis is coming back, maybe they would not do that. But, trades, this trade activity so far, this is rare for the NFL. We have not seen it to this degree, certainly in the month of October, and we still got 13 days left. So, I don't know. You could look at it one of two ways. If all of a sudden you upset Houston and Minnesota, would you say, hey, wait a minute?
I know, that's
or
the
vice versa. If you lose both, you say, hey, this is where it's trending. I tend to think it'll be stand pat.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they do something. Now, if they do something, I don't think it will be at least something that we'll talk about much consequence. By the way, just mentioning Trent Richardson, did you see, I meant to send Mark this sound to you. There's a good amount, I think, of profanity in it. So that's one reason why I was like, I don't know. There's just a lot of profanity. But the Pivot podcast with Channing Crowder and was it Fred Taylor?
Yeah, they were
and
at
Ryan
Colts
Clark?
training camp, weren't they this year?
They were there the day it rained. If you remember, they had to cut short their Anthony Richardson interview. Trent Richardson was on that podcast and said that Ryan Grigson in the facility one day told him that you're dead to me. He told Richardson that. He said to him and LaRon Landry.
He talked about Ryan Grigson like I've talked about Bally Sports before.
Basically. So,
yeah,
not some happy stuff there.
I don't think those two saw eye to eye.
All right, Pacers' ceiling is what this season? Kevin has already mentioned he thinks they'll be a top 4 seed. I agree with him. But what are we talking here? Eastern Conference Finals return? What is the ceiling for the 2024-2025 Indiana Pacers?
Gosh, it just has that feeling that Boston's in a different stratosphere.
Mm-hmm. I know. It does.
And again, how many teams win a title and their 2 best players come back pissed off? And that's,
not
I
many.
think, the reality of where the Celtics are at. So, it almost, and the East hasn't been this way for the last couple of years, but it almost has a bit of a LeBron-type feel, or certainly Colts fans felt that at times with Brady and the Patriots. I know they were competitive with them in 4 games last year, but still, it was a sweep. So I would say the ceiling is the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, being a top 4 seed, being like the 4 seed, getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think winning, maybe a game or 2. Obviously not being swept would be fantastic if you did make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I'll echo what you say, KB. It feels like, and I've said it a couple times today, it feels like, last year, this year, maybe the next couple years, it does feel like we are living kind of in the Eastern Conference in the world of the Boston Celtics.
Last but not least, what are we watching? You guys got anything on the docket, on the watch list? I've got one if you need
Yes.
I'm caught up on Penguin on HBO Max, and I thought the first episode was a little comic book. Not, I was just like, I don't know how good this is going to be. But like episode 4, you're like, okay, this show might have some teeth to it. So that's, if you have something, I know a lot of the shows, as soon as it starts, we get to winter, all the TV shows are going to pick up now.
One that I have not watched yet, but is on the watch list that Ashley and I will watch at some point probably this weekend is the new Anna Kendrick movie called Woman of the Hour. It's her directorial debut, but it's on Netflix. It's about a true story of in the 70s, the dating game, the show, The Dating Game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A woman was set up with a serial killer. He was an actual real-life serial killer. He killed like 7 people, but he's one of the contestants on The Dating Game, and that is a movie that I'm highly interested in.
Well, that should be season 32 of The Bachelor, it sounds like there, to have a twist there. I hope this is not going to be me anytime soon. Well, maybe in some areas of my body. Shrinking.
What?
Season 2.
What's that?
On Apple.
Okay.
Very good. We actually started season 2 last night. Jason Segel.
Oh, okay,
who certainly rings a bell.
I know what you're talking about now.
I get like
Harrison Ford, right?
Yeah. Harrison Ford in it. I get some Forgetting Sarah Marshall vibes, frankly, from Jason Segel already in it. But a shrink here. And very good. Like a lot of comedy, a lot of humor, but at the same time, I think there are some, kind of thoughtful moments throughout.
Have you guys seen Yellow Jackets? That's coming back
No,
this month.
I would like to watch it.
Yeah, Mark, you should watch that. It's about
Notre Dame beat down on Saturday.
It's a girls soccer team that crashes in the middle of nowhere in Canada, deep in the woods, and
is it real?
No. And obviously they're trying to stay alive. They become like 2 tribes. There's something else going on in the woods. It turns in like there's like devil sacrifices. There's a lot going on. It's a thriller type show, but it's coming back. So if you want to catch up, I think they have 2 seasons. I think this is season number 3. So that might not be bad for the Dyketons. There you go. So there you go. I got to know. Good stuff there. All right, it's a Wednesday. Now we were. What was the gentleman's name who went 0 for 5 yesterday on the pop quiz? Was it?
I don't remember.
Was it Ben? What was his name?
I chose to forget it.
Okay. Well, we had someone go
Adam.
0 for 5 yesterday. So let's hope we do better. Load him up for the pop quiz. 317-239-1070. We'll do the pop quiz. We'll wrap up a Wednesday next here on The Fan.
Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, pop quiz in a few. I did want to apologize earlier. I think I was caught up in the Bronny mania. I mentioned LeBron had 36. That was Anthony Davis with 36 last night. LeBron.
How dare you?
Yeah. 16 for LeBron last night, maybe?
So I looked at the box score. I just thought I looked at it wrong.
No.
I got to be honest.
I did. I looked at it wrong.
It's okay. LeBron was he was still fine, and they won, and they beat Minnesota. It's a bad loss for Minnesota. Come on, Minnesota. What's going on?
Yeah, I kind of like Minnesota, even the post-trade. Like,
Yeah.
I think DiVincenzo can add something
I
to
agree.
them. Yeah, I thought that was a disappointing effort. They were down 15 early. I mean, when Bronny went in with, them down 15. So last night, I thought Anthony Davis was great for Team USA this summer. And just kind of him and Bam Adebayo in more of that reserve role when Embiid was struggling. He was outstanding. So 80 with 36 last night. And again, tonight, Pacers, Pistons coming up 7 o'clock. Our coverage will begin at 6:30 with Pat Boylan and company.
Yeah, our guy Dalton Connect only had 5 points last night for the Lakers.
But he looked
That's
good,
my
you said,
guy.
walking into the arena?
Yeah, he had the bling and everything else on. He is he's definitely he looks a lot more LA than he did last year at this time, where he looked like he was living in Knoxville. No offense to Knoxville, but he went Knoxville to LA, so there's a little bit different swag when you do that.
Northern Colorado before that.
Just a little bit.
All right, give us number 1 through 8 for the pop quiz.
Man, let's do fast fingers today. How about caller number 1? Mark?
Okay.
Speedy Pete Wheeler is who?
Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Mike, we're doing great. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
Mike, we went 0 for 5 on the pop quiz yesterday. The bar is low. Can you raise it?
Let's do it.
I'm looking at these answers here. I mean,
there's a couple.
Hell, I've heard of all of them.
Yeah, there's a couple. So we'll see. Scotty not too mean on this hump day. Question number 1. The Pacers open the NBA season tonight in Detroit, taking on the Pistons. Tonight's game is the 114th regular season contest between the teams. Who leads the all-time regular season series between the Pacers and Pistons?
You can't go negative off the bat. I think the Pistons would have dominated the 80s and the 90s, but I'll go Pacers just because I don't think you guys are going to go negative right off the bat.
Well, have you heard Scotty before, Mike? The Celtics beat the Knicks in last night's NBA season opener. The Celtics tied an NBA record by hitting 29 threes. They missed their final 13 attempts as they tried to break the record. Whose record did they tie? Bucks, Jazz, Warriors, Rockets.
Watched the first half of that game. They were on fire. Want to give me a little bit of a hint here or no?
I would not have guessed this team, frankly.
That's my hint. I would not have. In fact, they would have been probably 3rd or 4th on my list, honestly.
Bucks, Jazz, Warriors, Rockets.
I'll go Jazz. Bucks.
Okay. Question number 3. The Celtics missed 32 three-point attempts last night, which is nowhere near the NBA record. Name the team that missed the most three-point shots in an NBA game. Was it the Bucks, the Jazz, the Warriors, or the Rockets?
I'm going to guess just because they've shot so many of them the last couple of years, they went cold one of them. I'll go with the Warriors.
Joe Carter on this day in 1993, the three-run walk-off home run off of Mitch Wild Thing Williams gave the Blue Jays their second straight World Series title with an 8-6 win over the Phillies in Game 6. Who was named the most valuable player of the 93 World Series? Was it Carter, Paul Molitor, Roberto Alomar, or Pat Borders?
I believe that was Pat Borders.
All right, question number 5. One aspect of Major League Baseball that has all but disappeared is the complete game. Toronto's Kevin Gausman, Atlanta's Max Fried, and Philly's Christopher Sanchez led the majors with 2 complete games each in this past season, 2024. Who was the last pitcher to have 20 complete games in a season? 20 complete games in a season. Was it Phil Niekro, Ron Guidry, Fernando Valenzuela, we talked about him today, or Roger Clemens?
Wow. What were the first two?
Phil Niekro, Ron Guidry.
Necro was a knuckleballer, so he could throw forever. I'll go with Necro.
Well, I appreciate Adam's effort there. I thought he actually cared.
He did. He had some common sense behind his answers.
You know, Pat Borders, I felt bad for that one. He was the MVP of the 92 World Series on that and got the first two right. Pacers, yes. Let's go! Bucks was right.
That is correct.
I'm trying to think who was on that 2020 Bucks team that would have shot that many threes.
I mean, I guess, is that just like Middleton and...
I'm guessing, yeah. Wow.
Beasley, I don't know, was Malik Beasley on that team? I mean, certainly Lillard. Brooke Lopez hit about 10. Didn't he hit a bunch against the Pacers last year?
It seems like he did, yeah.
And I thought, like, guessing the Warriors wasn't the craziest thought in the world.
No,
you know?
it was the Rockets.
That Rockets team also shot 1,000,000 threes.
That was James Harden, right?
Right.
I mean, he was on that team.
Good effort from Mike.
Well, it was fun while it lasted.
Paul Molitor was the answer to number 4. Most valuable player of the 93 World Series, and then the individual, the gentleman who just passed away, Fernando Valenzuela. He was the last pitcher to have 20 complete games in a season. I just can't. The over-under for that now is 1.5 in a season. 20! Can you imagine that?
No,
20? I mean,
not at all.
Can you imagine if a guy had 7? Can you imagine if Garrett Cole had 7?
Again, 8
We'd be
straight to start his rookie season there. 5 of them shutouts for certainly one of the greats. Jameis Winston getting the nod in Cleveland post Deshaun Watson. I love that. That might turn the Browns season around.
Well, they might win a game. They might win an extra game or two. Yeah, I don't know. Do any of their players become better fantasy football options? Are you starting Nick Chubb or Jerome Ford in fantasy football? Probably not. You're going to be out there at Colts facility, right? Sykin's at 11 o'clock today?
Yes,
I
coming
believe
up today,
11 o'clock today?
a little earlier. So, again,
All
that
right.
injury report, Taylor and Buckner start the 21-day window for Buckner, and we'll see if Taylor practices for the first time in about a month.
And then I don't know, maybe putting words in your mouth. Taylor practicing doesn't mean he's playing. I feel more if Buck practices, he plays maybe at least a little bit.
But again,
is that
Buckner's
wrong to say?
Buckner's missed 5 weeks.
Well, yeah, he got injured in week, what was it 2, right?
You know, when Josh Downs went down with that ankle, he needed 2 weeks of practice to get back. So I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
and Buckner, to me, is the freak of all freaks on that football team. So I get where you're coming from, but again, I don't know. It'll be very, very interesting with the Colts' 2 best players in terms of their injury status throughout the week.
If they can just get these guys back and healthy. I mean, I really think they would have. I think they have a chance anyway. I think, boy, if these guys were healthy, they would really have a chance. Right now, the Texans just are not playing great football. I mean, they got pushed around there in Green Bay. So we shall see. Good stuff today. Reminder coming up tonight, 6:30. Our pregame coverage here on The Fan. Pacers in Detroit taking on the Pistons. J&B coming up at 3. Jake and Jimmy at noon. Have a good afternoon right here on The